You can hear me?
Yes, sir. We can hear
Right.
you.
Hope everybody is keeping fine, though that we are not very conducive environment. But anyway, we have to live with what we have been offered. So wish everybody in good health, first place. So we are for the day 2 on the SME credit management under Diploma in SME financing course. So basically, last week we did a kind of introduction to the credit management, and today and next week probably we might be able to do a kind of a 2.5 hour sessions, maybe 1:30 to 4 o'clock today, and maybe the next week also similar duration. During that, I am expecting to cover the further into the credit management area. What we have done last week is basically the course or the session outline is our plan to do like introduction to credit, type of borrowers and business sectors, guidelines for good lending, advances classification, branding of loan, credit appraisal, risk management. If time permits, we will have some more time as section 4 about recovery and follow-up. Let's see how the things are unfolding. So last week, basically, we discussed about introduction to credit, borrowers, business sectors, and guidelines of good lending, right? What we have done basically, just to run through on what we have done. Give me a second. Right. So we discuss about, what is credit, right? Oh, no, it's not working. And we discuss about what is credit in terms of finance, in terms of banking, then credit management, right? Then we discuss about importance of credit to the country or emerging market in a kind of economy. Then what are the sources, what are the uses. I basically advise you to keep on have an eye on these slides in case if we are supposed to give a question on examination. So these are the areas that you need to have an idea. Then type of borrowers, we discussed who are the borrowers that we need to face with or come across in day-to-day banking, and especially going into the technical details. Then going into the technical details, what we need to understand is a risk profile, right? So the nature of the borrower, right? How is his credit worthiness. Those are the things that we need to be comfortable with, thorough with in case of financing. Then we continue about overview, what are the type of the lending types, right? And then what are the purpose, right? What type of areas, what are the sectors technically, rather than purpose of advances, maybe the sectors, right? Where we are planning to do our lending, what are those sectors and subsectors, like when you say trade and what is inside the trade. So where you can give different types of financing. So those things actually we have completed during last week. Then we move to the other one, that is part 2 basically. Rather this one. Right. So again, we started with categories of lending, right? We'll share it first, right? Then what are the categories? Like I discussed like 4 categories, like asset or collateral or base lending. And then we talk about cash flow based lending, and we discuss about project lending, fee based lending. 4 with examples, what's the like difference between each other and why those things are important, and so we discussed. Then we phase out, like once we give a loan to a customer, how we need to how we can, get about, like how we are going to get the loan being repaid. Maybe first way out, second way out, third way out. So we were trying to understand three ways out. First is basically cash flow. Second is collateral. Third is personal guarantee, also corporate guarantee. So we discussed that. So thereafter, most important is basically, which is important actually, the previous slides is also important for your exams, and this is most important part for the exam in case that we are supposed to sit for the exam. 10 principles, 10 basics, 10 best practices we learn in detail. Safety, liquidity, profitability, spread, purpose, end use, need-based, viability, own stake, and national priority. So we went into detail with examples and case studies kind of thing. So I presume that you have a fair knowledge on these lending principles. Whether you do micro, whether you SME, whether you do MME, even corporate, these fundamentals will not change. Those things are very important in terms of understanding the client's creditworthiness, understanding the client profile, understanding the client, the ability to borrow. So will depend on these things when you are trying to structure the credit. So these things are important. And then we further discuss about like what is the lending proposition, what is the borrowing proposition, and what is banker's responsibility, and what could be the banker's decision starting the lending. Then again, we discussed a bit about culture and credit culture. So probably we end up with at the type of credit, facilities, advances, branding, or classification. So up to that, actually, we have been discussing last week, right? So what I wanted to, get from you is any sort of feedback, any gray area, any sort of clarification that you need to, raise here, what we did on last week. So anything is up to now, so then if you have any question, queries, then we can, handle it before moving to the type of credit facilities and advances. It's up to you now. So we have 21 of students right now, and then we have, so then Nirmal was telling you haven't got the PPT yet from IBSL, but I was told that this has been uploaded in the Google Drive, isn't it? Nirmal? Ayumal?
Yes, sir.
Right, Nirmal, apparently it's in the Google Drive, I suppose.
Let me check, sir. Let me check. I'll check. Okay.
Yeah, please, because last time I was told that, all three areas has been uploaded. If not, please let me know and we can, ask Menaka to attend it from IBSL end. Right. Any other questions? Actually, Nirmal has put it to the SMS or the message. Ayumal, Johan, Nuan, any questions?
No, sir.
No, sir, no question.
I don't have any questions, sir.
Right. Great. If anybody else is having, it's like it's time for you. Priyanara. Okay, let's see. If you do have any questions, please raise. Even we are conducting today's program. So basically, we are trying to understand, the credit management basics, introduction, or the areas of credit management. So during these 3 sessions, that's what our intention is as well. However, in big picture, in practical sense, right, you can learn those things. But the thing is, when you go to a bank, when you are trying to do in practical perspective, what you want to know is, as I told you on the other day, we are trying to interconnect 3 players, that is borrower, credit, type of credit, or the security. We call them BCS model: type of borrowers, type of credit, type of security, like BCS. We have learned bit of S, we have learned bit of B, now we are trying to learn of C. In terms of independent isolation, you can think about, you can learn each item, each player, each role. But important is, we need to understand the relationship of these 3 in interconnection. not isolation, right? If you have a borrower, then you need to think about what is the credit I can offer him and what is the security that I am available. When you have B, C, and S, three of items together, it is easy for you to do what? To minimize the risk that we were talking about, or manage those 10 principles. We learned some 10 principles, 10 best practices, 10 basics. ඒ ටික manage කරගන්න ලේසි මේ තුනම එකට තිබ්බා. අපි දැන් වෙන වෙනම ඉගෙන ගත්ත අවස්ථාවල මම හැම වෙලේම කිව්වේ බරෝව කියන එක නිකන් ටෙක්නිකලි දැන් අපි හිතමු ඉන්ඩිවිජුවල් කෙනෙක් කියන්නේ ප්‍රොප්‍රයිටර්ෂිප් එකක් පාර්ට්නර්ෂිප් එකක් මොකක්ද කියන එක ලොකු දෙයක් නෙවෙයි. when you go to Google and the features of individual borrowers කිව්වම ඔක්කොම ටික අපිට ඒක මහ ලොකු දෙයක් නෙවෙයි. ඒක ඉගෙන ගන්න ක්ලාස් එකකටවත් එන්න ඕනේ නැහැ. but important is දැන් ඉන්ඩිවිජුවල් කෙනෙක් ඉන්නකොට එයාගේ nature එක, එයාගේ risk profile එක, එයාගේ credit worthiness එක, willingness to repay එක අන්න ඒක ජජ් කරගන්න එක තමයි credit officer නැත්නම් credit manager කෙනෙක්ගේ ability එක. I was telling you an example where general manager questioning interviewing a borrower, whereas a credit officer interviewing a borrower, and general manager could take a decision within 5 minutes where we need more than day or two. That is art versus science. මං කිව්වා දා. ඒතර දැන් general manager art කියන තැනින් පුරුදු වෙන්නේ. අය artistic වෙලා තියෙන්නේ because he has used the science to arrive at art. But we are yet to reach to the art where we are still practicing the science. ඒතර අපි science කියන එක හරියට කරොත් we also become artist or we can practice the art. ඒක තමයි මේ එහෙම නැත්නම් ඕගොල්ලෝ මේ විටින් විට කරන course programs වල අග්‍රඵලය නැත්නම් end result එක. එහෙම නැතුව මේ කටපාඩම් කරගෙන විභාගේ පාස් කරගෙන සාතිකයක් ගන්න එක පමණක්ම නෙවෙයි. That is what I every time encourage, every time tell, right? Because you need to gather more and more practical knowledge using these skills, using these materials. එතකොට දැන් we are trying to learn about advances. හැබැයි advances කියන එක කටපාඩම් කරගත්ත කියලා ඒක වැඩක් නැහැ if you are unable to use it in this big picture. DCS model එකට දාගන්න බැන්න වැඩක් නැහැ. Right? Last time we discussed about offering OD to one of your best customers, offering OD one of the bad customers. එතකොට OD එකේ මොන ලක්ෂණ තිබ්බත් good bad අනුව වෙනස් වෙන offering එක නේ. අපි OD කිව්වා hardcore වෙනවා කිව්වා. OD එක control කරගන්න අමාරුයි කිව්වා. එතකොට OD එක ගත්තාම end user can show කරන්න බෑ කියන. ඒ ඔක්කොම හරි. හැබැයි ඒක immaterial when you talk about the best customer in your book. එයාට ඔහොම නෙවෙයි. as වහලා මොකද දුන්නත් he is credit worthy and he will repay. I mean, no worries. ඒ වගේම තමයි it's the bad guy, how much you have controls may not going to repay you. ඒ හින්දා cashback එකකින් තොරව අපි OD එකක් කරන්නේ නැති වෙයි. අපි NPL in the D-rated customer. So that's what I am talking about. So where you try to interconnect OD with the client in the presence of security. අන්නේ BCS model එක හැම වෙලේම ඔළුවේ තියාගන්න. මේ අපි කරපු මොකක් වුණත් end of the day what you need to take home is BCS model. And then තව චුට්ටක් ඉස්සරහදී අපි ඉගෙන ගන්නවා ඒ BCS model එක interconnect කරන methodology එක. What type of appraisal, credit appraisal techniques දෙකක් තුනක් ඉගෙන ගන්නවා while managing the risk. එච්චරයි. අන්තිමට BCS model and 6C's approach or the MIFID model කියන එක තමයි අපේ ඔයා ගෙදර අරන් ගිහලා තියෙන්නේ. මේ ඔක්කොම theory. මේ ඔක්කොම ලස්සනට තියෙනවා. අර ටික තමයි ඔයාගේ ඔළුවේ තියෙන්නේ. මේ sessions තුනක් කරලා ඉවර වෙනකොට you have to know how I am managing my customer, how I am acquiring my customer, how I manage the risk profile, how I manage the profitability, how I manage the concentration risk, how I manage the pricing. ඒ ඔක්කොම ටික වා කරනවා මේ කියන කතන්දරෙත් එක්ක. So that's what basically you need to know. ඒක තමයි මම හැම වෙලේම මේ ඔළුවට දාන්නේ. right? එතකොට එතනින් තමයි ඔයා පටන් ගන්න ඕනේ. එහෙම නැතුව මේක මේ අර තවස කෙනෙක් කරා තව තැනකදී කරා කිසිම වැඩක් නැහැ. ඔයා ප්‍රැක්ටිස් එකක් හැටියට මේක ඇඟට දාගත්තේ නැත්තම් you need to put it in your way, not the way I teach. It's up to you. දැන් මම කියන BCS model එක ඒක ඔයාට ඕන විදිහට වදාගෙන, so you need to practice it day in day out. You need to practice, right? Then you know, right, like general manager Belwa is good for exposure about 2 million clean, or with the partial security, or with the mobile. ඒ මොකම 80ක් හරියනවා. මොකද හේතුව he was telling it with his scientific proven experiences. तर එතෙන්ට තමයි අපි යන්නේ. तर එතෙන්ට යන්න මේ පාඩම් කරන දෙයින් බෑ. එතෙන්ට යන්න මේ පාඩම් කරන දේ ප්‍රැක්ටිස් එකට දාලා ඒකෙන් you need to get some outcome, and you have to argue with yourself what went right, what went wrong. ඒකෙන් වා ඊළඟ level එකට යන්න. Borrowers important, sectors important, products important, security important, environment important, process important. Lot of things would come, and then you come to a final and conclusive decision. Right. Now we move to type of credit facilities. Right. මම හිතන්නේ මේක අපි සාකච්ඡා කරා. Direct, indirect. This is very important for exam purposes. I am telling again. ඊට පස්සේ අපි බලමු මේ direct advances කියන්නේ කීපයක් අපි discuss කරමු. Loan, OD, bill discounting, revolving credit. So we'll take one or two and then we discuss, because again for exam, yes, good to know at least one or two products. Brief description of term loan, brief description of OD, so which is important for your exam. Right. Before that, any questions? Anything? Any question? Fine. When it comes to the loans, loan එකක් කියන්නේ, right, we try to give it to a client to support his mainly capital expenditure. එහෙම නැත්නම් permanent working capital වෙන්නත් පුළුවන්. Right? So we will have some kind of a agreed amount or limit. So gradually is going to repay. Then there are some agreed terms and conditions, pre-effective condition, pre-disbursement condition, special condition, right? And generally it's secured over collateral. ගොඩක් වෙලාවට loan එකක් කියන්නේ longer tenor, so we have a higher risk in repayment. So you might have collaterals or the security in the secured basis. Then it's a gradual or definite repayment. අපි කියන එක loan amortization එකක්, installment plan එකක්, ඒ විදිහට තමයි loan එකක් යන්නේ. Mainly loan එකක් අපි ගත්තොත් compared to the OD එහෙම නැත්නම් short term loan එකක්, revolving එකක් ගත්තොත් මේකෙදි end කාලයත් එක්ක exposure අඩු වෙවි යනවා. STL එකක්, import loan එකක්, packing credit loan එකක්, OD එකක් ගත්තොත් limit එකක් ඇතුලේ anytime can go to the original limit. මේක එහෙම නෙවෙයි. housing loan එකක්, personal loan එකක්, term loan එකක්, bridging loan එකක් කාලෙත් එක්ක අඩු වෙනවා. Since that we are trying to offer this for about a longer period, ඒක නිසා මොකද වෙන්නේ? ඒක හින්දා එන්න කාලෙත් එක්ක මේක අඩු වෙවි යනවා. That's how it's. Then we go to the overdraft. What is OD? OD එකක් කියන්නේ ඊට වඩා ටිකක් වෙනස්. Generally, දැන් මෙතෙන්ට එන්න කලින් මම කියන්නම්. OD is basically we try to use to finance overhead expenses. අපි ගත්තොත් working capital එකක් කියලා කියන්නේ we have stocks, we have debtors, and we have some say expenses, for example, or creditors. එතකොට debtor එහෙම නැත්නම් stock financing සඳහා OD එකක් අපි කලාතුරකින් පාවිච්චි කරනවා, but it is not the ideal product. OD is good for a sudden requirements or other overhead related expenses. මොකද ඕනම තැනක OD එක ටිකක් පොඩි limit එකක් වුණාට කමක් නැහැ. We can offer short term import pledge loan ගොඩාක් ඒවා දෙන්න පුළුවන් stock වලට. Factoring bill discounting එතකොට post rate check discounting දෙන්න පුළුවන් data financing. ඒතර අනිත් ඒවට තමයි OD එකක් පාවිච්චි කරන්න ඕනේ in general. But in practical we see many occasions where OD is being used to finance a working capital also, like stocks and debtors. So it's not a very good structuring. ඒ නිසා තමයි අපිට ගොඩක් ප්‍රශ්න එන්නේ අපි මේ වගේ දෙයකට පාවිච්චි කරමු. But we can't say no to clients due to competition or whatever. Sometimes we need to offer that type of financing as well. Fine. The OD gatot can be categorized into several types: permanent overdraft, temporary overdraft, casual overdraft. Permanent overdraft එක කියලා කියන්නේ, so we see a kind of a requirement which is more or less permanent. You approve against the security, have a limit, and every year that you are going to review it. So within that, client can utilize. Then temporary overdraft එක කියලා කියන්නේ, it is not a permanent, the word itself says, but there are temporary requirements. දවස් 30කට 45කට 60කට 90කට 180කට it could be a transaction specific. A transaction එක ඉවරනකොට ඒක settle වෙන්නත් පුළුවන්. That's what I was telling. Sometimes though it's not acceptable, අලුත් order එකක් එනවා, බඩු ටිකක් ගන්න ඕනේ, මගේ import loan ඔක්කොම ටික දැන් cap වෙලා තියෙනවා, දැන් මට දවස් දෙකක් තුනක් හතරක් ඇතුළත ගත්තේ නැත්නම් ඒ order එක නැති වෙනවා. Then I might go for a temporary overdraft. Even if I'm expecting some debtor payments yet to materialize, but still I need to pay some money to my working capital. මම OD එකක් අරගෙන ඒක settle කරනවා, material purchase එක, whereas I am getting debtor payment in another 2-3 days, so the OD could be settled. That's a temporary. But a temporary OD එකක් වෙන්න පුළුවන්. Casual කියලා කියන්නේ excess කියලා අපි කියනවා. ඒක maybe day in day out, so there may be some urgent requirements. Check එකක් එනවා, check එක pay වෙන්න. සල්ලි චුට්ටක් වැටෙනවා, හවස වෙනකොට වැටෙනවා, උදේ මම දෙනවා. So within a day 2-3, so it's going to be settled. So those are the 3 types of overdrafts we come across in day-to-day banking. Right? See what are the other features. Granted on application after careful evaluation. That's true, because OD is very difficult product to manage. Easy to operate, simple to understand, difficult to control. එතකොට මේ පැත්තෙන් ලේසි වෙනකොට ඒ පැත්තෙන් අමාරු වෙනවා. OD limit එකක් තියෙනවා. අපි දැන් ගත්තොත් ඒ limit එක ඇතුලේ තමයි client operate කරන්න පුළුවන්. Fluctuations හොඳට තියෙනවා. That is our expectations. Terms and conditions. There are so many terms and conditions can be imposed because to manage OD. Turnover ගෙවන්න, cash build-up එකක්, sinking fund එකක්, security එකක්, OD review කරන්න, post data checks අපිට දාන්න, PD checks additional comfort එකට තියාගන්න. So many covenants, controls. So POD generally to meet working capital requirements with or without the definite repayment program reviewed periodically. මාස 6න් අවුරුද්දෙන් අපි review කරනවා. security එකක් ගොඩක් වෙලාවට අපි ගන්නවා. repayment period එකක් අවශ්‍යම නැහැ, because on demand අවුරුද්දක් යනකම් එවන්න කියලා කතන්දරයක් නැහැ, but he can pay. So he anytime he can take the money out using the only limit and settle the outstanding. TODs are going short term. Here, 45 had a specific requirement, specified period. At casual OD are mama kiwage over the counter to support the check payment, a very short period. Eka tamai OD ekaka api dakina lakshana. Meka important for your exam. Sometimes you may be asked to write a short note on OD. එතකොට but making කොටසක් ගන්න පුළුවන්. Generally, when you are supposed to write a short note on a product or whatever, you need to have some answer plan. මම මේකට ආන්සර් ප්ලෑන් එක නිකන් කියන්නම්. ප්‍රොඩක්ට් එකක් හරි මොනවාරි දෙයක් ආවොත් you need to write in like point form answers in hari lazy 1 2 3 4 කියලා ලියන්න. The first line could be line or two could be introduction, a definition of the particular product. එතකොට එක line එක ලියන්න. Number 2 could be some features of the particular instrument. Number 3 could be advantages, disadvantages. Number 4 could be risk mitigants. ඒ කියන්නේ product එකේ මොනවා හරි අවදානම් තියෙනවා. ඒ අවදානම් පාලන ක්‍රියාමාර්ග මොනවද? අන්තිම එක maybe illustration example එක. practically අපි මොකද්ද OD එකක් පාවිච්චි කරන අවස්ථාව. කියලා අපිට ලියන්න පුළුවන්. ඔයගේ lines 5ක් විතර ලිව්වම හොඳටම ඇති product description එකේදී. Introduction, features, advantages, disadvantages, risk and mitigants, illustration of the example. Those are the 5 lines one can write. එතකොට දැන් ඕගොල්ලන්ට in case if we prepare for examination, yes, you need to practice these 5 lines for selected products. One quarter term loan, OD, අපල්ලි හරිත products උත් තියෙයි. මොකද product එකක short note එකක් ලියන්න අපිට එන්න ඉඩකඩ තියෙනවා. So you can add some more points after self searching, but here there are some points also you can take it and write your answer. Right. Before moving to the bill discounting, any questions? Let's move on. Bill discounting, එක අපි ගොඩක් වෙලාවට check purchasing, check discounting, bill discounting, bill financing, right? So මෙතනදී මේ ගොඩක් වෙලාවට අපි මේ කරන්නේ, there are some occasions අපි check purchasing එකේ කිව්වොත් client need some money for a temporary working capital requirement. ඒ කොහොමද වෙන්නේ? Let's say today is a Friday. Client comes and tell you, so I have a check from ABC company. So the check date is today, I am depositing, but I want the money today itself because I have some urgent purchases to do. But if we follow the normal process, when you deposit it today, so you get the realized amount by Monday or early Tuesday. The client needs to wait at least 3-4 days, including weekends. So what you could do is, instead waiting client for the 2-3 days, you would purchase the check and order account and pay it. After confirming the fate, after see transaction, who the drawee, who the drawer, right? A similar kind of a transaction. So you do some background check and you get that confirmed from the respective issuer of the check. You are comfortable, you purchase check and you issue money. Maybe by Monday, late Tuesday, you get the money and settle that. So that's to support urgent working capital requirement. Similarly, bill discounting also, maybe international transaction, international trade, or the local trade. There are, because sometimes the client process the order and maybe ship to the third party who residing in a foreign country. But you need to wait 14 to 21 days to get that payment. The client might come and tell you, so yes, I have done the shipment, these are shipping documents. So my buyer is so and so. So probably he has a good rating, right? So we can get international institution independent rating on the particular buyer residing country. So we can get an idea about country risk, the borrower risk and all that. So you are happy to take that risk. So the buyer risk could not be so great. So you discount the bill, right? And give the money to the export. After 14-21 days, you get the money through remittance and then you get settle the particular tranche that you have got. Now, ये वाला bill discounting කියලා කියන්නේ. එතකොට ගොඩක් වෙලාවට මේ කියන bill discounting, invoice discounting, bill purchase, check purchasing, ගොඩක් දේවල් අපි දකිනවා. මේ ඔක්කොම working capital financing කරන වෙනස් විදි. Right. Any questions on the 3 products we discussed? Right. පැතුම් අහනවා මොකද්ද මේ hardcore OD එකක් කියන්නේ? Hardcore OD එකක් කියන්නේ පැතුම් like let's say we give a overdraft to a client and then a client is supposed to operate the account with adequate fluctuation. මොකද්ද මේ adequate fluctuations කියන්නේ? අපි හිතනවා 10 million OD එකක් දුන්නාම ඒකේ තියෙනවා minimum maximum balances තියෙනවා. එතකොට අපි හැම වෙලේම utilization එක අපි තුමු 95% utilize කියලා. ඒකේ තේරුම මොකද්ද? ඒ කියන්නේ හැම වෙලේම 9.5 million balance එකක් maintain වෙනවා. එතකොට 105ක් වගේ තමයි fluctuate වෙන්නේ. මොකද maximum minimum balances දෙකම ඒ තලයේ තියෙනවා. එතකොට අපි බැලුවොත් කාලයත් එක්ක යනකොට මේකේ balance එක constant වෙනස් වෙන්නේ නැහැ. But whereas another person මාස 3ක් ගත්තොත් 10 million වලට ගියා. 10 million උඩටත් ගිහිල්ලා තියෙනවා. 0 වෙනවා. 2 million, 3 million, 0. So you see a lot of fluctuation. Minimum balance is 0. Maximum balance maybe you might have reached beyond the 10 million limit. ඒක කමක් නැහැ. Current account එකට සල්ලි ඇවිල්ලා තියෙනවා. එතකොට making checks ගොඩක් clear වෙනවා. Fluctuations ගොඩයි, transactions ගොඩයි. So many movements within the account. ඒ වගේ account එකකුයි අර මම කිව්වා වගේ 95ක් balance එක හැමදාම තියෙන account ගත්තොත් that is we called hardcore. Less movement, less fluctuation, less transaction, less turnover routing through current account. OD hardcore. මේ OD එක it's very proper OD එක කියලා කියනවා. ඒක තමයි hardcore OD එකකයි general OD එකකයි අතර වෙනස. පැතුම් is it okay? Very good. Any other questions? ඒ වගේ මොනවා හරි ගැටලු තියෙනවා නම් අහන්න. සමහර වෙලාවට yes exam එකේ අහන්න පුළුවන් what do you understand by the hardcore OD and what mitigations you propose to address the hardcore position of a current account කියලා ඇහුවොත් ඉස්සෙල්ලාම අර පැතුම් වගේ දැනගන්න ඕනේ මොකක්ද hardcore OD එක. hardcore OD එකක් අවම කරන්න දැන් මම කියපු කාරණා ටික improve කරන්න ඕනේ. ඒතර ඒ ටික දන්නේ නැත්නම් we might lose some 5-6 marks. අනේකයි මම කියේ දැන් අපි එකපාර වචනයක් මෙතන දැනගත්තාම you need to work on that. right? පැතුම් මේක අහගෙන දැන් ඔන්න පැතුම් යනවා ඒක. ඊළඟට බලනවා right. ගියා branch එක කතා කරනකොට මේ මචං hardcore ODs එම තියෙනවා. ඇයි අපි hardcore ODs check කරන්නේ නැත්තේ? hardcore OD එක කියන්නේ ඔයා දන්නවද මෙන්න මේකයි. ඒකේ මොකද්ද risk එක? අපි දන්නේම නැහැ. අර අපේ භාෂාවෙන් කියනවා ගල් වෙලා ඒක. ඒතර client pay කරගන්න බෑ. අපි එතකොට ඒක term out කරන්න වෙයි. එතකොට යාට term out කරන්න cash flow එක තියෙන්න වෙයි. අපි මුලින්ම බැලුවා නම් ওই level එකට යන්නේ නැහැ. limit එක අඩු කරයි අපි. නැත්නම් අපි visit කරලා බැලුවාම අපිට තේරෙයි customer is not doing well. ඇයි මේක hardcore වෙලා තියෙන්නේ? customer ගේ මුලින් ඇහුවනම් එයා කියා මම මේ සල්ලි දාලා ඉඩමක් ගත්තා. Then immediately you might get that mortgage සමහරවිට if it is clean. අන්න ඒ වගේ initial actions ටිකක් අපිට ගන්න පුළුවන්. දැන් ඒවා තේරෙන්නේ මේ concept එක දැනගෙන so we need to work on that. නැත්නම් ඉතින් limit එකක් තියෙනවා ප්‍රශ්නයක් නැහැ නේ customer දාලා තියෙන OD limit එකකින් අපිට මොකුත් flags එන්නේ නැහැ. within limit එක ප්‍රශ්නයක් නැහැ කියලා ඉන්න තරමට it is hardcore. ඕම වැඩි වෙලා interest ඔක්කොම එකතු කරලා ඔන්න දැන් limit එක උඩට එනකොට ඔන්න බලනවා right O line එකේ එනවා so what we would do මේ මොකද වෙලා තියෙන්නේ සල්ලි වැටලා නැහැ එතකොට minimum balance එකයි maximum balance එකයි දෙකම සමානයි last months 2 months credit බිඳුවයි debit එකක් විතර තියෙන interest ගිහිල්ලා තියෙනවා so now it's problematic very difficult when come to OD becomes hardcore අනිත් ඒවා නෙවෙයි ඇයි දැන් මේක ගිය සල්ලි කොහෙද ගියේ කියලාවත් දන්නේ නැහැ සෙටල් කරගන්න විදියක් නැහැ ඊට පස්සේ මේක අවුරුදු 5කට දාලා security හොයාගෙන term out කරලා cash flow හදලා කතන්දර ගොඩක් කළා තමයි අපිට මෙතෙන්ට එන්න වෙන්නේ any questions Ayumal Johan any experience on hardcore clients have you experienced any hardcore clients in your bank
Yes, we are having due to that many evaluations get wrong some decisions because of that.
මොකද එතකොට අයෝමල් ඔයගොල්ලෝ කරන්නේ මේ දවස්වල? අපි මොනවද කරලා තියෙන්නේ?
we are converting it to, that means we are asking to customer whether he can repay
Mhm.
to a term loan, and we are
Right.
restructuring, sir.
That's great. අයෝමල්ලගේ තව පොයින්ට් එකක් මම ඇඩ් කරන්න ඕනේ. දැන් හුඟක් වෙලාවට අපි දැන් ඔය රීස්ට්‍රක්චර් ෂෙඩියුල්මන්ට් එකනේ අර කෝකටත් අයිලි තියෙන්නේ. දැන් අපි ඒක කරනකොට we need to be in
cash flow.
that is right. Very good. දැන් අපි දැන් ඒක කන්වර්ට් කරලා අයෝමල් then what could happen is එතකොට එයාට අපි කියනවා you need to repay. අපි ඕන වෙන operating account එකකින් checks උත් අරගෙන අපි ඉන්නවා. Then what we are missing is
we have to at least we have to keep little amount to that means POD limit or whatever, that to get
very
the
correct.
working capital requirement.
Very correct. That is the way forward, Ayomal. We need to take a now little bit risk now. Can't help.
Yeah.
දැන් මිලියන 5ක් තියෙනකොට ඔයා මිලියන 5ම කන්වර්ට් කරලා සද්ද කරන්න බෑ. මිලියන 2ක් 3ක් ලීව් එකක් තියලා ඒ ටික දෙලා සමහරලාට මිලියන 5ට දැන් මිලියන 7ක් වෙලා එක්ස්පෝෂර් එක. Can't help. But tighter control now. දැන් අර වගේ කතන්දර බෑ. checks ටික හරියට එන්න ඕනේ. checks ටික බලලා අපි pay කරන්නේ, cash flow එක එන්න ඕනේ, sinking fund එකක් හදන්න ඕනේ, security එකක් ගන්න ඕනේ. මාස 3 තුනට review කරන්න ඕනේ. You have to visit the client and get some information. Stock inspection. So many things now. දැන් එල්ල recovery mode එක. දැන් අර යාළුකම් අරන් බනම් මිත්‍රකම් ඉවරයි දැන්. Right? So that is what basically we need to do. Right? ඒකේ අයෝමල් what we could do is like ආසිරි suggested. ආසිරි නේද අපිට කිව්වේ. පැතුම්නේ. පැතුම් suggest කරා වගේ what we could do is we need to understand the hardcore nature. ඒක පුළුවන් නම් කලින් අඳුරගන්න. That is what the credit officer's role. අර hardcore වෙනකන් ඉඳලා වැඩක් නැහැ. Decisions could go wrong. ඒක ඉතින් අපිට කියන්න බෑ. අපි හිතනවා ඒ වෙලාවේ අපේ තියෙන credit knowledge එක හෝ whatever තියෙන එකත් එක්ක අපි ගන්නවා decisions. Right? ඒක වැරදින්න පුළුවන්. වැරදුනා කියලා control එක අතාරින්න හොඳ නැහැ. So that's what generally we need to do. Right. අපි මුවෙමු ඉදිරියට. International trade ඒකත් අපිට ගොඩක් වැදගත් වෙන එකක්. Generally සාමාන්‍යයෙන් we have so many products to support international trade. අපි ගත්තොත් local trade එක කියලා ගන්නේ buying and selling in local region within the country. එතකොට ගොඩක් වෙලාවට ඔය අපි කිව්ව import loans, packing credit, short term loan, pledge loan, trust receipt loans, OD ඒ ඔක්කොම useful වෙනවා. But when come to the international, ඔයිට වඩා අපිට වැදගත් වෙන්නේ export import related. So if you have import customer, there are several methods that he can be facilitated. කොහොමද? අපි දු import කෙනෙක් ඔයා export කෙනෙක් ඉන්න තව රටක. එතකොට import කෙනෙකුට there are several methods. එකක් තමයි cash in advance. Right? Say his friend, his brother, or maybe his relative in Japan. අනේ ඒ වෙලාවට I am in Sri Lanka, I can send cash. මගේ යාළුවනේ cash කලින් ගවල මම මට බඩු ටික එවන්න. No harm. නැත්තම් මගේ කම්පැනි සබ්සිඩියරි තියෙන්නේ කොරියා නම් no harm, I can send cash in advance. බඩු ටික ගේනවා. ඒකෙම අනිත් එක තමයි goods in advance. මගේ සබ්සිඩියරි කම්පැනි මට බඩු ටික එවනවා. මම පස්සේ සල්ලි එවනවා. මගේ රිලේටිව් මට බඩු ටික එවනවා. මම පස්සේ එවනවා. Because those two transactions are risky if the parties are unknown. දැන් මම දන්නේ නැති කෙනෙක් එක්ක transact කරනවා නම් obviously there is a risk. I දැන් මම cash එකවල බඩු එවෙ නැත්තම් හරි. එයා බඩු එවල මම සල්ලි එවෙ නැත්තම් then we are in trouble. ඊළඟට තව ඒව જાතියක් තියෙනවා. Documents against payments, documents against acceptance. DPDA. Right? Say there is a foreign party, he sends the documents to me, I pay and get the documents and go to the shipper and collect my goods. Documents against payments. Documents against acceptance. Okay, foreign party කියනවා it's okay that you can pay in 3 months because we have been working together for the last 5-10 years, so I am having trust on you. It's okay, you can pay it in 3 months. එතකොට මම මොකද කරන්නේ? සයින් කළ ඩොකියුමන්ට්ස් ටික අරගෙන බඩු ටික ක්ලියර් කරලා විකුණලා මාස 3කින් සල්ලි දාන්න. So that's a fourth method. ඔය ඔක්කොටම වඩා better method එක අපි කියනවා letter of credit කියලා එකක් තියෙනවා LCs. ඒකදී unknown parties උනත් we deal with bank to bank through documents. Cash සම්බන්ධ වෙන්නේ නැහැ. ඒතර ඒකත් එක්තරා method එකක් international trade facilitate කරන්න. So there are 5 methods that we are talking, we are speaking. International trade වල importer ගේ පැත්තෙන් ගත්තොත් ඔය වගේ methods ටිකක් තියෙනවා. When it comes to the exporter has the same kind of requirements. Example, I am an exporter planning to send cinnamon to some other country. එතකොට මොකද කරන්නේ? මම exporter import ඉන්නේ රටේ. Initially, I might ask him export LC from that client. Export LC එක base කරගෙන මම මගේ බැංකුවත් එක්ක කතා කරලා I might take a short term loan to process the order. අපි ඒකට කියන packing credit loan එකක් ගන්නවා. අරගෙන වැඩේ කරනවා. කරලා මම යවනවා බඩු ටික රටට. ඒ අවල මම කියනවා right, so we are waiting 10-15 days bill discounting එකක් ඉල්ල ගන්නවා මම මගේ බැංකුවේ. post shipment, pre shipment financing. ඒවා exporters ලට සම්බන්ධ වෙන products. එතකොට international trade වලදී ඔය කියන importers ලට ඔය කියන exporters ලටත් we are providing different type of products. Right? So that's a bit of different product and different operations. Right? ඒකයි අපි ගොඩක් වෙලාවට trade operations කියලා කියන්නේ බැංකුවකට and trade operations වෙනම section එකක්. ඒකේ operations part එකකුත් තියෙනවා, trade related approval part එකකුත් තියෙනවා, credit appraisal. The credit appraisal probably we might undertake, but the day-to-day trade operations being handled by different department called trade department. What අපි කියනවා international trade. දැන් මේ කතා කරන්නේ direct advances වලදී we have taken couple of examples to understand the types of the product, features, their risk levels, because we need these product features, risk levels, and the kind of nature in order to match the client requirements. Right. Before moving to the indirect advances, any questions out of these? මොනවා හරි ප්‍රශ්න තේරෙන්නේ නැති ඒවා තියෙනවද? තියෙනවද ප්‍රශ්න? Okay, we'll move. ඊට පස්සේ අපි යනවා එහෙමනම් indirect advances. Indirect. ඒකෙත් අපි ඉගෙන ගත්තා කීපයක්. ඒකේ අපි බලමු products කීපයක්. මොකද මේ products එම දැනගන්න එක හොඳයි. Because you can learn it in detail when you undertake, but good to know some of these products. Indirect කියලා කිව්ව ගමන්ම අපි දැනගත්තා off the balance sheet, no cash out, contingent, we get fee income, right? Those are some of the features. Examples: bank guarantee, bank bonds, and then contingent liability for the banks, not the direct liability. It's a potential, possible obligations. අවශ්‍ය වුණොත් විතරයි අපිට මේක commitment එකක් වෙන්නේ. Right? off balance sheet කිව්ව accounting entry. දැන් අපි එක example එකක් අපි ගමු. දැන් better we discuss with the product. අපි දැන් bank guarantee එකක් right. මේ මොකක්ද මේ? දැන් bank guarantee එකක් වෙනකොට there is a party, bank, and another party, client, and there is a distributor, maybe we call principal, bank. තුන් දෙනෙක් ඔතන ඉන්නවා. එක්කෙනෙක් beneficiary කෙනෙක් ඉන්නවා, එක්කෙනෙක් guarantor කෙනෙක් ඉන්නවා, අනිත් පැත්තෙන් client. Right? එතකොට මේ තුන් දෙනාම එකතු වුණාම තමයි bank guarantee එකක structure එක හැදෙනවා. So the beneficiary example could be the multinational company. අපි තුමු Nestle කියලා. එතකොට Nestle එක තමයි beneficiary වෙන්නේ. Then who is the client? ඔයාගේ distributor කෙනෙක්. ඔය පැත්තේ ඉන්න dealer කෙනෙක් වෙන්න පුළුවන්. Bank එක ඔය. How this happens? Without the bank, the client dealing with the multinational, and probably he might have fixed deposit, හරි මොකක් හරි limit එකක් cash තියලා බඩු ගන්නවා, විකුණනවා, සල්ලි දෙනවා, ආයෙ බඩු ගන්නවා. මිලියන 2ක වගේ limit එකක් operate කරනවා. Now the client wants to expand its operation. එයාගේ expand කරන්න operations යනකොට මොකද්ද වෙන්නේ? Right, I will come to that. Now, Asri is asking a question. Trade risk mitigation. Asri, I didn't exactly clear your question. What we can offer to customer. මොකක්ද එතනදී mean කරන්නේ? Asri කියන්නකෝ.
එතනදී මට දැනගන්න ඕන වුණේ දැන් අපි මේ ඔය වගේ ෆැසිලිටිස් දෙදී ඉම්පෝර්ට් එක්ස්පෝර්ට් කරද්දී ෆැසිලිටිස් දෙද්දී ඒ එකම කස්ටමර්ට ඔෆර් කරන්න ඕන නේද? ඒකත් සම්බන්ධ වෙච්ච නිකම් එක්සැම්පල් එක විදිහට ඒ සම්බන්ධ ඉන්ෂුරන්ස් එකක් ඒ වගේ දෙයක් ඔෆර් කරන්න ඕන නේද? ඒ වගේ මොනවාද තියෙන ටූල්ස් උත් අපි යට ඒ වෙලාවේ
එතනදී ආසරි මෙහෙමයි. දැන් එක්සැම්පල් එකකට අපි මුලින්ම කිව්වොත් ඉම්පෝර්ටර් පර්ස්පෙක්ටිව් අපි කියවනේ cash in advance, good in advance, DPDA, LCs කියලා පහ. ඔය පහ ගත්තොත් අපිට අනිවාර්යයෙන්ම cash in advance එහෙම නැත්නම් good in advance වගේ ඒවා අපි ඇඩ්වයිස් කරන්නේ එයාගෙම කවුරු හරි. එයාගේ subsidiary එකක් තියෙනවා නම් so he also comfortable. මොකද නැත්නම් he is at risk because he is at risk of not getting the goods or not getting the cash or the money. අනිත් පැත්තේ. එතකොට but when you got the DPDA again එතනදිත් risk එකක් තියෙනවා. අපි ඉල්ලන දේ නොවෙන්න පුළුවන්. Right? Because you are not getting assurance where you get exact product or the merchandise that you asked for. But when it comes to the LCs, you don't have that caution because you agree as per the invoice, as per the contract. So everything in fine and you pay according to the instruments. So එහෙම ගත්තාම මුලින්ම අපි structure එකක් හැටියට අපි client ව safeguard කරනවා. You better go to LC if the unknown parties are involved. That's number one. Number two, now it's a risk for you whether the customer is not going to pay. Because then bank to bank, what මොකද කරන්න දෙයක් නැහැ. LC එකක් open කරාම you have to pay. For that actually then you might take security, then some other conditions like other loans like cash flow saving එක, sinking fund, ඒ වගේ දේවල් කරන්න පුළුවන්. That is all about importers. Right? When go to the exporters තියෙන්නේ even we under the LC export LC එකක් අරගෙන අපි product එකක් හදලා product එකක් යවුවට පස්සේ again we take a buyer risk and ඒ buyer අපිට සල්ලි එවනකම්. ඒ කියන්නේ ඒතික කොටස් දෙකක් තියෙනවා pre shipment වල කොටසකුත් post shipment කියලා තව කොටසක්. As Patum rightly asked, because the pre shipment risk is based on the export LC, we advance client to proceed the work. හැබැයි if the client is unable to proceed the work, what happen? අපේ ගිය සල්ලි ටික අපිට recover කරගන්න බැරි වෙනවා. මොකද export LC එකක් තිබුණාට වැඩක් නැහැ. බඩු ටික යවුවේ නැත්නම් අපිට සල්ලි හම්බෙන්නේ නැහැ නේ. So we have a risk on performance. ඒතරේ performance risk එක minimize කරගන්න අපිට කරන්න පුළුවන් දේවල් ටිකක් තමයි take a good security, evaluate your customer track record for the last 5-10 years, how he has performed. එහෙම නැත්නම් අපිට තෙන්ට ගන්න පුළුවන් insurance එක. අපි කියනවා pre-shipment insurance. Insurance එහෙම දෙන companies ඉන්නවා SLASIC වගේ ආයතන. ඒකට අපි කියනවා SLASIC කියලා insurance එකක්. Insurance එකක් අපි ගන්නවා to manage the performance risk from the customer's perspective. ඊළඟ මේ පැත්තට ආවම again you send the goods to the buyer. buyer ගේ payment එක අපි එනකන් ඉන්නවා. ඒ buyer ගේ payment එක එනකන් ඉන්නකොට there is a likelihood that the buyer will not pay you. I දැන් අපි discount කරලා client දීලා මගේ customer දීලා එයා ඊළඟ order එක වැඩ කර කර යනවා. But there are chances that the buyer is not going to pay you due to some reason. එතකොට මොකද කරන්නේ? ඒ වෙලාවට cover කරන්න අපිට පුළුවන් post shipment insurance එකක් ගන්න පුළුවන්. Give me a minute. Sorry about that. So then then we might have a risk of not paying from the buyers. දැන් අපි හිතමුකෝ රෂියා වලට ටී යවනවා. හරි? එහෙම නැත්නම් චිලි වලට අපි යවනවා සිනමන්. ඒ බය අපිට සල්ලි ගෙවෙන්නේ නැත්නම් ඒ රිස්ක් එක මිටිගේට් කරන්න අර වගේම post shipment insurance එකක් අපිට ගන්න පුළුවන්. SLASIC වලින්. So those are some of the things that we can ask the client to take to mitigate exporters risk and the importer risk. Api generally then in exporters perspective, yes, we got some pre-shipment and post-shipment SLASIC insurance cover. But in terms of importers, you basically take a property to cover your import loan and those things other than LC, those things, because they are basically you need to worry about the customer repayment capacity. Then අපි තුන් වාහන ගෙන්නන කෙනෙක් නම් import වලින් වාහන ගෙන්නලා අපි දෙනවා IFL එක. මාස 3න් 4න් වාහනේ අපිට විකුණන්න ඕනේ. So what you could do is අපිට ඕනනම් ඒ shipping documents එහෙම නැත්නම් LC documents අපිට තියාගන්න පුළුවන් collateral එකක් හැටියට in addition to the property. එතකොට අපි ගාව ඒ ටික තියෙනවා නම් එයාට වාහනේ විකුණලා transfer කරන්න බෑ documents අපි ගාව. Documents ටික අපි ගාව යනකොට අපි දන්නවා වාහනේ register වෙලා විකිනෙනවා කියලා. So you take it and do the transaction. You can have settlement එක කරනවා. So those are some of the things that you can take as precautionary or risk mitigations in terms of importer, in terms of exporter. Is it clear, Patu? Right. Then coming back to the bank guarantee and bonds, where are three parties. So the bank is undertaking on behalf of our client in case if the things are not happening. So we act, we are there, we indemnify. ඒක තමයි bank guarantee එකකින් කරන්නේ. Right? So basically, in case of a default, මොකද වෙන්නේ? Bank has to pay on behalf of the client to the beneficiary. ඊට පස්සේ ඔන්න දැන් indirect liability එක now become a direct liability. ඒක තමයි bank guarantee නැත්තම් bond එකකින් අපි තීරණය කරන්නේ. There are so many bank guarantees or the bonds, domestic trade, contractors, international trade, financial, so many things that you can see. Then we mama QA general trade transaction එකක් වෙනකොට තියෙන bank guarantee එක. So I also take the liberty to explain some more, especially like one, because this is just for your understanding, like in construction trade, we do have so many bonds. Bid bond, advance payment, performance, maintenance, retention, ගොඩාක් දේවල් තියෙනවා. මේ මොකක්ද කියන එක මම පොඩි example එකක් අරගෙන කියලා දෙන්නම් because it could be important to you. So like අපි તો මෙහෙම මේ a contractor, now he wants to put up a building, right? And then who is the principal? Maybe education department, for example. Now education department calls for the tenders from potential contractors, asking the quotations. මෙන්න මේ building එක හදන්න quotations කියනවා. එතකොට ඔන්න දැන් එනවා එක්කෙනයි දෙන්නයි තුන් දෙනයි අරගෙන ඒගොල්ලෝ bid කරනවා. I am so and so මෙන්න මේ ගානට මම මේක කරනවා. So එහෙම කරනකොට initially education department will ask about a bid bond. සාමාන්‍යයෙන් total contract value 100ක් විතර තියෙන bid bond එකක් අපි දෙන්න ඕනේ. ඒ bid bond එක දීලා තමයි මගේ contract proposal එකේ නැත්තම් මේක දෙන්නේ. එතකොට ඒක ඇත්තටම අපිට reject වුණොත් we can get the money back, but we need to bid for that some. මොකද එතනදී අර පොඩි බයින්ඩින් එකක්. ඒක දැන් මේක අතහැරලා දාන්නේ නැහැ කියලා. නැත්තම් අපි bid කරලා ඉවර වෙලා මට හම්බුණා මම කිව්වොත් නෑ මට මේක කරන්න බෑ කියලා. So there is opportunity cost for the principal නේ. එතකොට bidding කරන්න bond එකක්. ඒ bond එක contractor ට දෙන්න බෑ. He has to come to a bank and say I am going for this contract, I am bidding for this contract. Can I get the bid bond on behalf of me towards the principal? එතකොට හරි අපි කියනවා හරි ඔයා cash ටිකක් දාන්න ඒකට against bid bond එකක් ඔන්න දෙනවා. So that's fine. Suppose you get the contract, bid කළා ඔයා ගන්නවා contract එක. The next stage මොකද වෙන්නේ? Then education department එක කියනවා right, I'll give the money, you need to work, right? And then ඒ ටික කළා ඉවර නම් මම ආයෙ සල්ලි දෙන්න කොහොම යනවා. Then chicken egg situation එක. Education department wanted to give the money. හැබැයි එයාට ප්‍රශ්නයක් මෙයා මේ සල්ලි කරන් වැඩ කරේ නැත්තම්. එයා කියනවා හරි initial එක මම ඔයාලට සල්ලි දෙන්න I want an advance payment guarantee. 10ක් 15ක් වගේ advance payment එකක්. මොකක්ද ඒ කියන්නේ? ඒක බැංකුවකින් අරන් දුන්නාම right bank එක on behalf of the contractor give the advance payment guarantee to the education department. දැන් මොකද වෙන්නේ? එතකොට education department එකට පුළුවන් අරයට මිලියන 10ක් 15ක් 20ක් advance payment එකක් දෙන්න. එයා වැඩේ කරා වැඩේ කළ ඉවර වුණාම අර පැත්තට සල්ලි දෙනවා. වැඩ කළ ඉවර වුණාම ආයෙ සල්ලි දෙනවා, වැඩ කරනවා ආයෙ සල්ලි දෙනවා. So like that. මොනවා හරි මොහොතක මෙයා වැඩේ කරේ නැත්තම් education department ඇවිල්ලා කියනවා I have advance payment on behalf of this guy, he's not working, I am going to claim it. අන්න අරයට comfort එකක් වෙනවා මේ advance payment එකක් තියෙන guarantee එකක් තියෙනවා. Sometimes දැන් ඔහොම කරගෙන යන අතරතුර එකපාර කියනවා මට හැබැයි performance guarantee එකක් ඕනේ. මොකද we never know whether this guy will work and after 1 year මේ ටික ඔක්කොම අවුල් වුණොත් නැත්නම් 5% විතර performance guarantee එකක්. වැඩේ කරලා හැංගෙන්න බෑ දැන්. මාස 6ක් 9ක්වත් යනකම් වැඩේ හොඳට තියෙන්න ඕනේ. අවුල් වුණත් performance guarantee claim කරනවා. That again the bank will give a performance guarantee. ඒ වගේ lot of instruments are there, products are there. Maintenance කියලා කිව්ව maintenance agreement එකක් තියෙනවා නම් ඒකට bond එකක්. ඒ දැන් maintenance එකට agreement එක ගහලා මෙයා මේට සල්ලි දීලා වැඩේ කරේ නැත්තම් bond එකෙන් claim කරනවා. Retention money සමහර වෙලාවට වැඩේ කරාම පොඩි 100ට 2 3 එකතු වෙලා retention money ටිකක් ඉතුරු කරගන්නවා. ඒ ටික දෙන්නේ අර කියන performance period එකත් ඉවර වෙලා තමයි මොකද තරද්දක් උන් නැත්තම් ඔන්න contractor සල්ලි ටික දෙන එක තමයි retention money වල තේරුම. දැන් contractor බලනවා so I have done it. Now I need some money that basically it's my profit is there as a retention money. ඕ ටික ගන්න education ministry එකට ගියාම කියනවා no I can't give it. Why not you bring a retention bond? අන්න ඉතින් මං ගාවට එනවා මම ඉතින් දෙනවා. ඔන්න දැන් on behalf of the contractor so I'll give the retention bond. ඊට පස්සේ සල්ලි ටික දෙනවා. දැන් මම මේ ඔක්කොම කරනකොට for me there should be a comfort no. එතකොට මම දැනගන්න ඕනේ මේ contractor කවුද? එයාගේ track record එක, his performance level, ICTAD එයාගේ මොකද rating එක, adequate security එකක් තියෙනවද? Those things I have to check on this guy. එහෙම නැතුව නිකම්ම මේ අරගෙන ඔක්කොම කරලා දුන්නාට පස්සේ මෙයා perform කරේ නැත්නම් ඔන්න I have a liability now. මෙයාට ගෙවන්නත් බෑ. I am also in a difficulty. So those are some bonds that we come across in day-to-day banking, especially in terms of contractors. ඒව තමයි අපි ගොඩක් වෙලාවට දකින්නේ මාකට් එකේ තියෙන products හැටියට. Any questions? Anything?
No, sir.
Right. We move on. Then advances, then basically we classify them into two, basically direct, indirect. අපි direct ඒවා ටිකක් ඉගෙන ගත්තා, indirect ඒවා ටිකක් ඉගෙන ගත්තා. As I told you, for your exams, there may be a chance of asking a brief note on, short note on some of the products we discussed. ඉතින් එහෙනම් ඒක චුට්ටක් බලා ගන්න for the exam purposes. ඊළඟට අපි යමු මේ advances තවත් classify කරන ක්‍රමවේද. ගොඩාක් තියෙනවා. Direct, indirect නේ අපි කැඩුවේ. Then there may be based on the tenor, short, medium, long term කියලා කඩන්න පුළුවන්. එතකොට short term කියලා කියන්නේ less than 1 year. 1 to 5 years medium term. More than 5 years long term. එතකොට short term products අපි දැන් ගත්තොත් මොනවද? overdraft එකක්, packing credit, short term loan. Those are, you know, repayable within 1 year වගේ. Medium term කියන්නේ leases, hire purchases, personal loans are medium term. Long term loan කියන්නේ මොනවද? Project financing, syndication වගේ ඒවා, එතකොට housing loan, those are long term, beyond 5 years. Right? ඒ විදිහටත් අපිට මේවා categorize කරන්න පුළුවන්. So what the purpose of categorization is to understand the risk. දැන් අවුරුදු 7කට 8කට 10කට ගෙවන්න තියෙනවා නම් මොකද වෙන්නේ? අපේ risk එක වැඩි. We need to have adequate security cover. We need to have better repayment plan, sources. එක දෙක තුනක්වත් තියෙන්න ඕන. මේක බැරි නම් මේකෙන් බැරි නම් මේකෙන් එහෙම. Security should be superb. Right? ඔය නිකන් මේ ගැටලු තියෙන security හරියන්නේ නැහැ. Right? ඒ වගේම short term වෙනකොට අපිට සමහරවිට security එක immaterial. Cash flow එක තමයි important. දැන් ඒක checks realize වෙලා පුළුවන්, stock realize වෙලා පුළුවන්. data assignments වලින් පුළුවන්, mobile security හැටියට අරගෙන අපිට කරන්න පුළුවන්. right? ඒතර අපිට ලොකු ප්‍රශ්නයක් නැහැ. මොකද short term environmental industry issues ඒවා එච්චර issues වෙන්නේ නැහැ. හැබැයි long term නම් we have issue. එකවරම අවුරුදු 3කින් asbestos ban කරනවා. polythene ban කරනවා කියලා කිව්වොත් we might have an issue if we have funded a machine for this type of factories. ඒක අද කියන්න බෑ හිත මොකද වෙන්නේ කියලා. medium term වෙනකොට risk එක අර තරම් අඩුත් නැහැ, වැඩිත් නැහැ, it's a medium. එතකොට බලනවා දැන් asset ගත්තොත් asset quality එක මොකද්ද? නැත්තම් job personal loan දෙනවා නම් එයාගේ you know the salary levels, වයස, health එක, හරි? ඒ විදිහට අපි බලන්න ඕන කියන එක තමයි මේ tenor specific classifications වලදී අපිට කියන්නේ. So then we move to another classification, that is advances can be understood, categorized by security. Security එක base කරගෙන අපිට පුළුවන් advances classify කරන්න. මොනවද? Mortgage loans, guarantees loan, pledge, TR loan, ඒ වගේ විදිහට අපිට security එක base කරගෙන. Security එක debtors ද, debtor assignments ද, checks ද, stocks ද, corporate personal guarantee ද, mobile assets ද, immobile ද, right? And නැත්නම් vehicle machinery ද, right? එහෙම නැත්නම් invoices ද. So there are so many products can be identified and understood by based on the security, based on the collateral. ඒකත් අපිට වැදගත් depending on you know the actions, mitigations, risk that you are anticipating. Very good, Sivakumaran, you are asking a good question. Syndication loan එකක් කියන්නේ මොකක්ද කියලා I'll explain. It's like this. Now let's say we come across projects like highways, harbor, airport, port city, for example, maybe oil extractions. Right? Those values are huge, maybe 2 billion, 3 billion, 4 billion, 10 billion, like that. When the loan requirement is very high, a single bank cannot undertake financing. Why? Due to number of reasons. One could be skills, one could be capital restrictions, one could be expertise required, one could be operational deficiencies. ගොඩාක් දේවල් හින්දා a single bank cannot grant the big loan which has been asked. හරි. එතකොට මොකද කරන්නේ? Then couple of banks got together and form a cartel, form a syndication, form a group and offer this loan. ඒකට අපි කිව්වා syndication එකක් කියලා. එතකොට මේකෙදී there are couple of banks and then the one person could be the organizer or the arranger. For that we are paying him the arranger fee. So he basically negotiates with the client on behalf of other banks and එහෙම කරලා loan approve කරනවා. ඒ loan එකේ තියෙන්න පුළුවන් long term part එකක්, short term part එකක්, medium term part එකක්, consultancy part එකක්, advisory part එකක්, fee based related part එකක්. So many components within that, and each bank who expertise on the each area would contribute in that way. For that they are getting the reward as well. The collateral could be a common collateral. Cash flows may be common and then segregated to others based on their part of the financing or the terms and condition requirement. So that is called as the syndication loan. Loan syndication. Any question? Sivaraman, did you get the idea? Okay. Very good. Johan gives us an example. House of Passion building. Probably it could be something 2 billion, 3 billion kind of investment. So 3-4 banks got together and they have funded the project. Because one bank could not be in a position to undertake that type of investment because it's big, it's complex, requirements are different. Fine, we move forward. Other type of advances. දැන් මේ විදිහට කියනකොටම තව කීපයකුත් අපිට අඳුර ගන්න පුළුවන්. Bridging funding, foreign currency, export අපි කතා කරා, import, දැන් මේ ගොඩාක් දේවල් අපි කතා කරා. මම මෙතනදී කියන්නම් bridging loan එකක් කියන්නේ මොකක්ද කියලා. Because other things we have touched. The bridging something is until we finalize the proper a formal loan, we arrange a loan as an intermediary or maybe something in between. We arrange a loan. Our ultimate aim is to go for a term loan, but until we arrange the bigger, the better, the complex loan, so we'll have some bridging arrangement. බිලියන 5ක arrangement එකක තියෙද්දි අපි බිලියන 1ක් විතර bridging loan එක. මොකද immediate එක arrange කරගෙන කරනවා. So because he needs some initial financing based on some agreement, and then finally we will approve the bigger loan. Bridging financing. So with the short period, with the available data, so probably you proceed with that. Okay. මොනවාරි ප්‍රශ්න තිබ්බොත් අහන්න දැන් අපි ෆැමිලියනේ. අය නවත්ත ඉන්න දෙයක් නෑ. දැන් මෙතනදී අපි තව චුට්ටක් ඉගෙන ගන්න බලමු. දැන් ප්‍රොඩක්ට් එකක් ගත්තත් අපි සමහර වෙලාවට අපේ conditions, loan conditions මොනවද කියන බලන එක හොඳයි, because a structuring වලදී this is important. customer eligibility creditworthiness is number one. මොකද අපි කියවනේ TOB කියන එක අපි වෙනම හදන්න ඕනේ කියලා. So that's number one. Then quantum of advance, equity. Then there are 10 principles වලින් එන සමහර ඒවා. How much the client is willing to contribute as equity. 100 ඉල්ලනවද? 70ක් ඉල්ලනවද? What's its contribution? එතකොට ඒක බලාගෙන how much we are going to finance. අපේ financing එක කොච්චරද? Very important. Based on the product that we need to decide. Based on the offering, we need to decide. Interest rates, එකත් important. ඒක fixed, variable, floating, because we were talking about long term. Long term යනකොට fixed ගියොත් අපිට සෑහෙන පාඩුයි. Then we better go to the variable. Short term නම් it's go for the variable. Right? Medium term, sometimes you can fix it like personal loan, like housing loan, like hire purchase leasing. Fix okay, because then you understood, you know, exactly this is the kind of requirement. එතකොට interest rate එක අපිට වැදගත් වෙනවා. Repayment period එක. අර මං කිව්ව installment ද, bullet එකක්ද, එහෙම නැත්නම් short term loan at maturity ද, monthly ද, quarterly ද, half yearly ද, equal installment ද, equated installment ද, right? Short the, medium the, long the, whether he need the grace period where he's supposed to pay only interest during the period. So ගොඩක් දේවල් එතනදී අපිට වැදගත් වෙනවා. Then we also need to know what type of securities, collaterals, අපි ඊළඟ එකේ තව චුට්ටක් එක ඉගෙන ගන්නවා. What type of securities that we are getting? ඒක immovable ද, movable ද, නැත්නම් tangible, intangible ද, those things also important. Other condition covenants. එකත් අර පැතුම් ඇහුවා වගේ, are we to take insurance? ඒක product related insurance වෙන්න පුළුවන්, general fire burglary insurance වෙන්න පුළුවන්, housing loan නම් mortgage protection insurance වෙන්න පුළුවන්. That is also important. එතකොට මේ terms and conditions ටිකත් අපි ඔළුවේ තියාගන්න ඕනේ when we try to structure the credits. Right? Then we talk about type of borrower. Now we have spoken about type of credit. ඊළඟට we are trying to discuss securities and collaterals. ඒකත් අපිට important වෙනවා as third item, right? Where these collaterals important in terms of structuring, mapping, right? First of all, we need to understand, later also we can go into bit detail in the next slides series. I make collateral එක ගන්න. If you remember, it was one of the ways out. මතකද? First way නෙමෙයි, second way නෙමෙයි, sorry, second way out එක collateral. හැබැයි මතක තියාගන්න collateral එකක් තියෙනවා කියන එකම is not a sole qualification to give approved credit. But having collaterals is nice to have. Better commitment from the client, obligation from the client, motivation to pay. And for us, it's like good to have security for impairment, provision, those purposes. So those things also useful. Then what are the collaterals available? There may be so many. Starting from cash. When you say cash deposits, it could be savings account, fixed deposits, savings certificates, NRFC, RFC, special collateral funds. So cash related instruments. We can find so many things in our banking book. So you can take them as the collateral. But depending on your bank policy, you might say 95%, 90%, 60%, right? Depending on the instrument, depending on the policy. Like if it is something about savings account, you might say we take 50% or so. It's a kids investment plans, you might say 60%. Fixed deposit, you go 95%. So it's something NRFC, because foreign exchange sort of fluctuations, you might say 90%. එතකොට ඒක බැංක් එක ඇතුලේ අපි ඩිසයිඩ් කරලා තීරණයකට එනවා how much could be the advance rate කියන එක. Then near cash, treasury bills, treasury bonds, insurance policies are near cash. එක cash මොන තරම් නොවුනත් ඒක near cash. It's like almost cash. අපිට over the counter කරන්න බැරි වෙයි. Letter of set off එකකින් ඒක මේව කරගන්න බැරි වෙයි. But that could be useful in terms of securing your advance. තව ඒවා තියෙනවා immovable. That could be cumbersome to get the immovables as collaterals, but immovables are there to support the requirements, the collateral requirement. Let's say land, building, fixed machinery fixed to the ground. You're immovable. මොනවා මේ immovable වෙන්නේ? ඒවා අපිට useful වෙනවා long term financing වලදී, medium term financing වලදී. Right? With the time, the value of the collaterals also could increase. The immovable security. Then movable ඒවා තියෙනවා. මොනවද? Vehicles, some type of equipment, machinery, stocks. හරි? ඒවා movable. ඒවත් අපි security කියලා ගන්නවා. Then especially import loans, hypothecation, pledge ඒ වගේ loans වලදී අපි මොනවද මේ කරන්නේ? ඒවා stock mortgage එකක් ගන්නවා. පිටිය ටික ප්‍රමාණවත්. stock එක realize වෙනකොට අපිට ඒක ප්‍රමාණවත් loan එක settle කරගන්න. book debts, receivables ඒ තව එකක්. debtor assignments වෙන්න පුළුවන්, posted checks වෙන්න පුළුවන්. ඒවා debtor assignments. ඒතර ඒක realize වෙනකොටත් ඔයාගේ loan එක repay වෙනවා. personal guarantee, company guarantee, corporate guarantee, නැත්නම් credit guarantee, central bank guarantee, right? ගොඩක් guarantees උත් අපිට useful වෙනවා. Those are third way outs. So here basically we are discussing about securities and collaterals. Atom, yes, you are asking gold, which actually I have not mentioned here. It might not to come to the near cash. It could be separate instruments. It's like almost good as cash, right? The gold basically going at the the pricing going rate. Now it's not a difficulty to sell it at a market and get your advance settled. That's why you see a very low NPLs recorded in owning all the gold loans. Right. Hope this would give an idea about bit of securities and the collaterals. So now we have a question from Patum Udayanga, I suppose. Patum Asiri. Sorry, Asiri Udayanga. Equal and equated. Right. Anybody in this forum can give an idea what is equal loan installment and equated loan installments?
equal loan mean sir ඒ කියන්නේ එකේ capital සමාන වාරික සහ අනික sorry equated කියන්නේ sir සමාන වාරික. ඒකෙදි වෙන්නේ වාරිකය මුළු පීරියඩ් එක පුරාවටම කස්ටමර් ගෙවන්නේ සමාන වාරිකයක්. ඒ කියන්නේ ඒක හදන්නේ ඉන්ට්‍රස්ට් කොම්පොනන්ට් එකයි කැපිටල් එකයි ඒකේ කැල්කියුලේෂන් එකක් තියෙනවා.
හරියට හරි.
ඒක ඒ කියන්නේ ෆස්ට් ඉන්ස්ටෝල්මන්ට් එකත් සමානයි අන්තිම ඉන්ස්ටෝල්මන්ට් එකත් සමානයි. හැබැයි
උදාහරණයක් ගත්තොත් housing loan, personal loan, leasing, hire purchase වල equated තියෙන්නේ. අනිත් එකේදී වෙන්නේ කැපිටල් එක සමහර කැපිටල් එක අපි අතරම හිතන්නේ දැන් 1 million දුන්නොත් 60 month නම් ඒක කෙලින්ම 60න් බෙදලා තියෙනවා. හැබැයි ඉන්ට්‍රස්ට් කොම්පොනන්ට් එක outstanding එක අනුව මේ reducing යනවා. එතකොට වාරිකේ end අඩු වෙලා යනවා. ඒවට අපි කියනවා reducing balancing method එකෙන් තමයි ඒක දෙන්නේ. ගොඩක් වෙලාවට අපි දකිනවා SME loans එහෙම නැත්නම් term loans ඔය equal installment වලට යනවා කියලා. Very good explanation. ඇත්තටම හරියටම හරි. Right. මම හිතන්නේ ආ කියන්න දෙයක් ඇඩ් කරන්න දෙයක් නැහැ. අයෝමාල් you are spontaneous, spot on. Very correct answer. What is equal, what is equated? I think hope Asiri you are clear with that, right? Asiri, okay? Very good. Thanks, Ayumal again. Right. So far, what we have been discussing from the section 1 and section 2, just to summarize, we discussed about the credit, introduction, sources, uses, importance of the credit, sectors that we plan to give, subsectors. Then we move to the 10 principles, good practices and all that. Then we discuss about type of borrowers, type of credit, type of securities, classification of advances, and then features, right? So technically, once we complete section 1 and section 2, so we are in a position to understand independently TOC, TOB, and TOS, and collectively interconnection of BCS, right? So I have basically, briefed you examination requirements also in section 1 and section 2. Hope that you have got a fair idea about BCS model, right? Now, next is to understand the interconnection of B, C, and S. How we can interconnect these BCS using some credit appraisal methods. That is about 5 CISO, 6 CISO, Campari. There are so many methods. And for the corporate financing, corporate customers, I also will teach you another model. So the next part could be the credit appraisal part. Following that, we try to understand some credit risk also to support the BCS model through these interconnections. So what we'll do is we'll take a 15 minutes break and we will meet 3:10, and then we'll start up with the part 3, that is section 3. So that is about credit appraisal, right? So we'll start with this one, take a 15 minutes break, and we'll come back 3:10, and then we'll continue the presentation from there onwards. Right. So let's meet in 15 minutes. So that's about 3:10. Okay. Okay, let's start. So that is the new area, new section is to understand the interconnection between borrower, credit, and the security. How to interconnect the BCS model. Borrowers could be individuals and borrowers could be corporates, SME, or partnerships. So we can categorize that into 2, right? And then so there should be a mechanism, there should be a tool to interconnect this borrower credit in the presence of security. And ඒක තමයි අපි මේ කරන්න plan කරන්නේ. So we have so many tools, mechanisms, like 5C that we are going to discuss here. එතකොට 6Cs කියලා තා පොත්වල තියෙනවා. When it comes to the 6Cs, what could happen here is capacity එක කැලි දෙකකට කැඩෙනවා, capacity cash flow කියලා. එහෙම නැත්නම් Campari කියලා, papers කියලා. There are so many models available. So what we are trying to do here is we try to discuss 5Cs in detail to understand this interconnection. අපි නිකන් දැන් B ඉන්නවා, C ඉන්නවා, S ඉන්නවා. දැන් අපි කියන්නේ independently අපි දන්නවා, collectively අපි දන්නවා. හැබැයි අපිට වැදගත් වෙන්නේ මේ තුන් දෙනා කොහොමද සම්බන්ධ කරන්නේ while managing the risk. Right? Risk එක manage කරගෙන කොහොමද අපි මේ BCS model එක තවදුරටත් work out කරන්න කියන එක තමයි අපේ challenge එක, නැත්නම් අපේ target එක. For that we basically trying to do 5 C's model එහෙම නැත්නම් 5C approach කියන එක අපි පාවිච්චි කරන්නේ. When you say 5 C's, we can identify it as character, capacity, capital, collateral, condition. If you analyze the 5 C's in a bit of different level, where කලිනුත් අපි මේ කතා කරා first C character could be linked to willingness to repay. Rest of the C's could be categorized as the capacity to repay. Willingness, capacity or ability to. එතකොට නිකන් මේක කාට හරි බලන්න පුළුවන් WA මොඩල් එක හැටියට. Willingness, ability. In terms of credit approval, credit appraisal, WA model එක එහෙම නැත්නම් 5C's approach එක අපි එක විදිහකට පාවිච්චි කරනවා. So that's what we are trying to learn in a few moments. At the same time, the same model can be used to follow up, recover the dues when the customer is not doing it perfectly. ඒකට අපි WA model එක කියලා කියනවා. ඒකත් මම චුට්ටක් මෙතන කියාගෙන ආපහු මෙතෙන්ට එන්න. When you say WA, that is willingness, ability කියලා කියනවා. Willingness කියලා කියන්නේ customer ගේ character එක, ability කියලා කියන්නේ මේ ඊතුරු C's ටික. There are some occasions where once you approve a credit to a client, you can find high willingness, high ability. කියන්නේ දෙකම high තියෙනවා. willingness උත් හොඳයි, ability උත් හොඳයි. Then what could be the scenario? You don't want to do anything. මොකද හොඳ willingness එකක් තියෙනවා, හොඳ ability එකක් තියෙන customers ලා pay masters. They pay your dues promptly. No worries at all. හැබැයි there are some clients who has high willingness but low ability. දැන් මේ දවස්වල යලා තියෙන environment එකේ ප්‍රශ්න. එහෙම නැත්නම් industry වෙන්න පුළුවන්. business එකේ management. So they have the willingness. Credit worthiness පැත්තෙන් willingness තියෙනවා මම මේක කොහොම හරි ගෙවන්න ඕනේ. But due to various other reasons, internal and external, ability low. එහෙනම් අපි මොකද කරන්න ඕනේ? Now we need to provide some solutions. ඔය අපි කිව්ව moratorium දෙනවා, loan extensions දෙනවා, restructures, rehabilitations, reschedulements, loan workouts ඔක්කොම කරනවා. When you find the client's willingness high, ability low. තව පැත්තක් තියෙනවා. willingness එකත් අඩුයි, ability එකත් අඩුයි. ඔහෙ නිකන් පැත්තක දාලා ඉන්න. So then you can't do much out of that. ability එකත් නැහැ. willingness එකත් නැහැ. That means due to like tourism for example some time back. මොනවද දෙයක්වත්. ඒකෙන් හෝටල් එකේ කට්ටියට ඉතින් කරන්න සල්ලි එන්නේ නැහැ, business උත් නැහැ. ඒ පැත්තනොත් වැටිලා, මානසිකවත් වැටිලා. They don't know what to do. ඉතින් ඇවිල්ලා කියනවා කතා කරොත් මහත්තයෝ ඉතින් මොනවද කරන්න කියලා අපිට තේරෙන්නේ නැහැ. So both down. එතකොට you can't do anything. So better keep it park. ටික කාලයක් අපි බලනවා. some ඒක තමයි අපි moratorium දීලා අවුරුදු දෙකක් තුනක් දීලා so let them to come up. Let them revive itself. business එකෙන්ම industry එකෙන්ම එන්න දුන්නා. we say park. park කරලා තිබ්බා. තව කට්ටියක් ඉන්නවා ability is there but no willingness. අර මුලදී character එකේ importance එක වගේ willingness එක දැන් නැහැ. සල්ලි තියෙනවා. business හොඳට යනවා. කිසිම ගැටලුවක් නැහැ but less willingness. Right? ආපහු ගෙවන්න නැත්නම් willingness එක අඩු වෙනවා. එතකොට you have to take tough actions. Litigations වලට යනවා, legal action යනවා. Right? So those are the four quadrants. දෙකම වැඩි, දෙකම අඩු, willingness වැඩි, ability අඩු, ability වැඩි, willingness අඩු. ඔය හතරම අපි ගාව තියෙනවා. එතකොට ඒ ඇත්තටම මේ 5C model එක WA හැටියට අරගෙන we can do recovery follow up mechanism also. So these are very important tools. Now as I always tells you, you should take these things and as much as possible try to practice, apply them in the work setup. එහෙම නැත්නම් විභාගෙට ඒ ටිකට ඔක්කොටම එක හරියයි. You get the certificates, but ආයෙ තව අවුරුදු දෙක තුනකින් ආයෙ තවත් තැනකදී ඔයගොල්ලෝ ආයෙ 6C 5C කැම්පාරි මෙහෙම කියලා ඉගෙන ගන්න. But no point. Always try to apply, practice, get something out of that. ඔයා දන්න දේවල් ඒකට දාන්න, ඒකේ වැලියට ගන්න, අරගෙන කරලා බලන්න. දැන් මේ WA මොඩල් එක කියන එක ඇත්තටම in-house we developed. කන් අපි මේ ඇත්තටම we wanted to start some approach. අපි මේකෙන් අරගෙන අපි බැලුවා why not we can use it different way. Work well. අපි එහෙම හදලා quadrant හතරකට දාලා clients ලයිවට දාලා different actions plan අරගෙන we achieved lot of good results. එතකොට අපි දන්නවා මේකේ focus කරලා right මේකේ මොනවද කරන්න ඕනේ. මේ quadrant එකකට මොනවද කරන්න ඕනේ. මේ quadrant එකට මොනවද නොකරන්න ඕනේ. මේ quadrant එකකට අපි මොකද්ද කළ යුත්තේ. So that is the kind of the learnings, applications. ඒ වගේ මේක somebody can think about in a different way. This is customer onboarding and follow up recovery වලට මේක පාවිච්චි කරා. right? 5Cs වලින්ම නෙමෙයි එතෙන්ද ගිය WA model එකේ. This is 5Cs model for customer acquisition, credit approvals, credit appraisals. That's fine. Right? If you have any questions, please raise, right? No harm. Anything related to unrelated, you can ask, and so we can, debate, negotiate, right? We can, get a kind of a good final solution. Then when come to the 5Cs, again, character, capacity, capital, collateral, conditions. So the character is basically is the credit worthiness, is willingness, past performance, interviews, factual. So those are the information that we are trying to understand, which is again very difficult to judge, measure. And when your CEO or general manager interviewing a client and he suddenly say that he's good for this exposure and so so he might have figured it out who is this guy, how much, what's his credit worthiness, what's his willingness. So that is the gut call, gut feeling. But this coming out from the interview discussion, what is the way of his behavior, and even තමයි අපි අරගෙන මෙයාගේ character එක පිළිබඳ අදහසක් ගන්න. Very difficult, especially SME partnerships, individuals වගේ ගත්තාම අපිට හරි අමාරුයි judge කරගන්න. They don't have proper business plan, right? They don't have not the proper business plan එකක්වත් නැහැ. අද එකක් හෙට එකක් අනිද්දා තව එකක්. So very difficult. Behaviors are different, right? ඒකට සල්ලි ටිකක් හම්බුනාට පස්සේ එකපාරම මෙන්න මේ කැබ් එක අපි තුමුකෝ බයිසිකල් එකේ ගිමිනියා ඊළඟ දවසේ කැබ් එක ඊළඟ දවසේ ජිප් එක ඉතින් හරි වෙනස් වෙනවා ඒගොල්ලෝ. But as credit officers, credit managers, you need to observe those things. එයාගේ personal pattern එක වෙනස් වෙන එක, expenses වෙනස් කරන එක, යාළු මිත්‍රයොත් එක්ක ගැටලු ඇති කර ගන්න. කියන්නේ ඒගොල්ලොත් එක්ක කොහොමද behavior එක, එහෙම නැත්නම් employer relationships කොහොමද, very important. ඒ හැම එකක්ම වැදගත් අපිට. එහෙම නැති වුනහම අපිට හරි අමාරුයි මෙයාගේ character එක, මෙයාගේ willingness එක, මේ credit worthiness එක check කරගන්න. But it's very important. It is number one. I mean, 70-80% of your decision in credit is to deal with character. ඒක හරියට judge කරගත්තේ නැත්නම් we are not in a position to pass the credit. Then capacity අපි කියනවා repayment කියලා කියනවා. So generally capacity කැලි දෙකකට කඩන්න පුළුවන්, cash flow and capacity කියලා. Not only the repayment plus the ability of running the business. Marketing capacity, management capacity, operational capacity, legal capacity. ඒ ඔක්කොම මෙතෙන්ට එනවා when you say capacity. Whether the person is able to run the business, able to manage the business, able to run the market, manage the market. ඒ ඔක්කොම coming under capacity plus cash flow සුත් එනවා. Debt service cover, interest cover, debt equity ratio. ඒ ඔක්කොම coming under capacity. Third, capital contribution. ඒ කියන්නේ කොච්චර දුරට is committed, obliged to do the business, run the business, right? ඒක. Collateral. අපි සාකච්ඡා කරා කලින් whether he is in a position to furnish a collateral or not. එහෙමනම් what type of amount values එතනින් හට අපි දිගට මේ කතා කරා යනවා. Conditions කිව්වහම two types. Internal, external. Internal conditions කියලා කියන්නේ loan related amount, tenor, security, pre-disbursement, pre-effective, post-disbursement, special ඒවා. External කියලා කියන්නේ about market, about environment, about government actions, about regulations. Those also important into a business. එතකොට when you are trying to evaluate a client through 5 C's, that you need to know each and every area with adequate details. What you are going to do is, when you try to assess the client using this, you see what are the positives, what are the negatives, how can you use positives to minimize negatives. Still, if I am not going to do, how should I use the terms and conditions to manage that? If everything is fine, then we say this is the calculated risk, then we proceed with the particular credit. එතකොට how you see this in practical scenario is මේක පාවිච්චි කරලා models හදාගෙන ඇති. Like credit card වෙන්න පුළුවන්, personal loan වෙන්න පුළුවන්. There may be scoring models. ඒ scoring models ඇතුලේ තියෙන්නේ මෙන්න මේ කියපු inputs ටික තමයි ප්‍රශ්න හැටියට ඇහිලා customer ගෙන් අහගෙන score එකක් එළියට එන්නේ. When come to the SME, when come to the mid corporate, when come to the individual clients who are doing businesses, you might have develop some credit proposal formats. ඒවා වලත් ඇහෙන්නේ මේ කියන ප්‍රශ්න, maybe in a different version. ඒතර ඒවා අනුව we have to take a call and say these are positive, these are negative, this is how we are managing these negative using these positives, and these are the conditions and covenants to manage further. So based on that, we will approve or we'll recommend this type of credit to this particular individual or business. ඒක තමයි මේ application එක 5C සරහා කරන්නේ. Right. Before moving to the detail, any questions? How are you doing your credit at branches, at your offices? Ayomal, anything to add here? කොහොමද ඔයගොල්ලන්ගේ credit කරන්නේ? මේ වගේ factors ඔයගොල්ලෝ contribute කර ගන්නවද?
Yes, we are mainly, that mean in our credit appraisal forms,
right?
From the top to the in the bottom, we are one by one. That means we first take the character about the customer,
Okay.
and then the management risk, then the industry risk,
Right.
and then the ratio analysis.
Right.
After that, mitigation factors and how collateral, and
Right.
how we are going to mitigate the risk,
Right.
and then the recommendation. Those
Fine.
are the step by step what we are using in our bank formats. Yes,
That's right. That's fine. So that's what I'm telling. When come to the practicality, you are not going to ask character ke ප්‍රශ්න ටික ඔක්කොම අහගෙන ලියාගෙන ඒක කරන්නේ.
Oh,
That is, you have a different format, but when you are following that format, you may have asked
yes.
almost all the questions that we are learning here. ඒකයි මම කිව්වේ. දැන් අපි හැම වෙලේම මේ බේස් එක ඉගෙන ගත්තාම then come to the,
Yes.
yeah,
Okay.
practically, you can use some of these things. Even when you say industry, then සමහරලාට industry එකේ ඔයා කතා කරනකොට there may be something to discuss. Industry outlook, market share, market growth, competition, right? එතකොට number of players, එතකොට market research, ඒ වගේ දැන් industry එක ඇතුලේ තියෙන දේවල් ටිකක් ඔයා ඉගෙන ගන්නවා when going to the corporate model. එතකොට මොකද කරන්නේ? ඒවා you can use it in case when you are evaluating clients. හැම customerටම හැමදේම අදාළ වෙන්නේ නැහැ. If it's a 5 million loan, you need not to talk about market share, market growth, yield and all that. But if you are doing 50 million, 100 million loan, market share important, market growth important, future outlook important, competition important. එතකොට you elaborate and write it. අන්න ඒකයි practicality, applicability කියලා කියන්නේ. You learn something here and you have something different in the office, a different format, but these learnings could be useful to enhance your write-up. How that you can get the value added there is, and how you are getting benefited is, once you put a new thinking to the credit paper, credit appraisal form, then your superiors will know, so you have introduced something different. I'll tell you example. When you talk about competition, so we can use Porter's 5 forces model into the application. And using 1 or 2 Porter's 5 forces triggers or the drivers, and you discuss your competition in the credit paper. Whoever who sees the credit paper will know that you have applied this, and that's a model that you try to describe the competition. Probably you are now being in a one notch above compared the rest of your peers. අන්න ඒවා තමයි අපි මේ valuation එකට ගේන්න ඕනේ. ඇයි වරදින්නේ නැත්තේ ඒවා? Because it has been industry worldwide tested models. SWOT model එක තියෙනවා, PESTEL model එක තියෙනවා, BCG තියෙනවා, product life cycle තියෙනවා, Porter's 5 forces තියෙනවා, generic strategies කියලා දාලා ගොඩාක් දේවල් අපි ඉගෙන ගන්න. එකම දේ අපි ඉගෙන ගන්නවා විභාගෙට පාවිච්චි කරනවා එතනින් පැත්තක තියෙනවා. Don't do that. Bring it as applicable. Let's say if you want to talk about the competition, and the competition, why not you use the Porter's 5 forces model some applications? ඔක්කොම පහම ගේන්න ඕනේ. අපි හිතමු මේකේ තියෙන්නේ bargaining power of buyers, suppliers, and the substitutes කියලා හිතන්න. Threat of substitutes. ඒ ටික හොයාගත්තොත් you quote it and write it and so analyze it and see what could be the outcome. Outcome should be definitely different. rather than නිකම් මේ මොනවා ලියනට වඩා අර මොඩල් එකක් පාවිච්චි කරලා එතනින් අරගෙන අපි ලියනකොට you have a better output. That's what you need to do. You are not going to change your format හරි මොනවා හරි ඒව කරන්න ඕනේ ඔෆිස් වල. ඒ තියෙන එකට value එක add කරන්න using some of these. මම එක කිව්වේ දැන් 5Cs අපි පාවිච්චි කරලා WA මොඩල් එකට. Nobody would have earlier thought about that. කවුරුත් ඒක කළත් නැතුව ඇති. අපි 5Cs වලම ඉන්නේ නැතුව we took it and we mapped and we developed WA model. Then a WA model එක දැන් අවුරුදු 5ක් තිස්සේ අපි පාවිච්චි කරනවා throughout branch network, throughout SME and mid corporate units. It's not working. දැන් අපේ කට්ටිය පුරුදුනා, අපි පුරුදුනා, branches පුරුදුනා. Now every time, every quarter අපි WA එකට දාලා බලන කවුද attack කරන්න ඕනේ, කාටද අපි අපිට ප්‍රශ්න වෙන්නේ. ඒ වගේම තමයි early warning signals කියලා තව model එකක්. තව එකක් අපි develop කරා follow up and recovery වලට. Now with that early warnings, then එතකොට මොකද කරන්නේ? Risk department is sending out early warnings on above 5 million, below 5 million කියලා අපිට එවනවා. There are 11 triggers out of there. ඒතර ඒකට score එකක් දාලා එවුවාම then on red කට්ටිය ඉන්නවා, amber කට්ටිය ඉන්නවා, green කට්ටිය ඉන්නවා. So looking at it, I know my branch there are red of this much. So I need to be act on this. Early warnings කියන්නේ නිකන් නෙවෙයි. return වෙනේවා, current account OD, hardcore වෙනේවා, loan repayment නැති වෙනවා, interest issues තියෙනවා. So some basis, some trigger, system related and environment related ටිකක් අරගෙන තමයි ඒක score කරන්නේ. So it's a good model that over a period of when you are using මොකද වෙන්නේ? ඒ data එකත් එක්ක මේක use කරලා now it's fine tuned. some acceptable level එකට ඒක එන්න පටන් ගන්නවා. So early warnings on follow up and recovery. Identification එතන කරා. එතකොට මේ handling අපි කරනවා W එකකින් අපි handle කරනවා. Right? Right, Johan, yes, power cuts. I don't know whether the power cut is looming in my area also, but anyway, we have half an hour to go. We'll ask, right, I will ask Menaka to upload it, Johan. Apparently, there may be power cuts. I don't know. They say there are no power cuts, but there are intermittent power shortages, but we will try to manage it. Anyway, Johan, so I'll ask them to upload it, but I'm not going to go very much into detail on these things next week, so we will continue where we stopped. Right, okay, Johan. This is what basically I am telling you, learn it, and rather than learning, practice. That's what, my message is. Otherwise, no point sitting 8 hours in Saturdays, right? If you just to, pass your exams or get kind of certificates, no way. That can be taken anytime if you go through these whatever presentations and write whatever the questions that I am giving you. But my advice is try to learn it, practice, and share the knowledge with your colleagues, with your peers, with your friends. That's how as an industry we grow. Industry we benefited. දැන් ඒ කරන්න පුළුවන් හැම දෙයක්ම දැන් මම W model එක මම ඕගොල්ලන්ට කිව්වා. ඕගොල්ලෝ ඒ ගණන් ගිහලා බලන්න ඕගොල්ලන්ගේ branch එකට දාගන්න පුළුවන්. branch portfolio එකට දාගන්න. බලන්න හරියනවද කියලා. Then go to the region. හරියනවද බලන්න bank එකට දාගන්න. Something. පොඩි දෙයක් නේ අපි කියන්නේ. normal recovery follow up එක ඔයත් තව චුට්ටක් fine tune කරන්න. That competition you fine tune through the Fortress 5 forces. එතකොට you can see so many triggers. අර හැම වෙලේම competition එක manageable and මෙයා one of the best කියලා නැතුව ඔයා බලනවා bargaining power of suppliers. Who are the suppliers? Top 5, top 10. මොනවද ඒගොල්ලන්ගේ supply frequency එක, supply quota එක, percentages. Actually are they dependent on this? අන්න දැන් හොයාගෙන යනකොට තේරෙනවා no, it's not a big deal. Sometimes you can advise your client also, no, you can manage it. So why not you know outsource something? Why not you know go to the backward integration, like you also can manufacture something so you in a better margins. ඒ ඔක්කොම හොයාගන්නේ අර එක හරහා. It's an advice to your client. It's a consultation. දැන් ඒවා ඔයා කරන්න ඉගෙන ගත්තාම Portersගේ 5 forces එකක් තියෙනවා, මේ පහක් තියෙනවා, විභාගය හොත් මේකයි කියලා පැත්තක දාන්න නැතුව take 1 or 2 and test on your clients, test on your markets. Regional market එක ඇති, don't go to the countrywide markets. Say Kurunagala vehicle sales, how many sales, how many players, what their margins, what their like shares. Kidna udina kawudu, udamekena kawudu, yatekena kawudu. Just get an idea. So they will give information about their turnover. So these are the level of shares. එහෙම කරලා බලන්න. That's what generally I will always encourage you to, you know, think practically, act practically. It will work, definitely it will work. Right, so we'll move to start one by one. That is character of the customer. Willingness to repay. අපි කිව්වනේ character එක කියලා කියන්නේ willingness to repay. That is what we need to judge. That is what we are trying to ascertain. How we are going to do? First source is past records, track records. ඒ කියන්නේ a client කොහොමද behave වුණේ, maybe the banks, financial, non-financial institution. How he was behaving. History of accounts with the bank. Kept good control over the money in the account in the past. Very important. Maybe with your bank, with the other banks, OD gattad, OD hardcore unada, loans gattad, loans repay vela nadda. What's like, you know, the kind of a crib report says. Lastly, we have mentioned. Performance of his past borrowings, default records. If any borrower guarantee creditary, borrower කෙනෙක් හරියට default කරලා තියෙනවද? එහෙම default වෙලා තියෙනවද? එහෙමනම් කොහොමද situation and all that. Dealings with other bank. මගේ බැංකුව විතරක් නෙමෙයි අනිත් බැංක එක්ක. How he has been dealt. crib borrower guarantee කොහොමද his records. Now today's crib, the recent day crib, gives so many information to you. Direct, indirect, check returns, how many times he has been presented, included in the crib during the last 6-7 months. What has been his repayment for the last 5 years. What are local information? A crib is basically is about to start, like almost there to give a credit score. ඒක තමත් හොඳ දෙයක්. ඒ කියන්නේ crib එකෙන්ම අපිට report එකක් දෙනවා යාගේ credit score එක මෙච්චරයි. It's in another way, it's a credit worthiness. හරි වටිනවා ඒ වගේ දේවල්. Right? So then there are some chances. Some clients are not in the crib. එතකොට අපිට සමහර වෙලාවට ඔය දැන් crib score එක එහෙම නැත්නම් personal loan වලට ගියම loan scoring වලට ගියාම then they are, you know, scoring with a low figure. Why? crib එකට ගිහිල්ලා නැහැ. ඒ මොකද loan අරන්නේ. දැන් එතකොටත් අපිට loan අරගෙන තියෙන කෙනෙක්ගේ report එකේ හොඳ score එකක් එනවා. loan ගත්තේ නැති කෙනෙක්ගේ නරක score එකක් එනවා. ඊට වඩා අඩු එකක් එනවා. But then you need to use the other sources to judge his credit worthiness. You getting what I mean? දැන් සමහර කෙනෙක් කියනවා එයා ඉක්විටි වලින් බිස්නස් එක දුවලා තියෙනවා. ලෝන් ඕන වෙලා නැහැ. ඇති තරම් සල්ලි තියෙනවා. එතකොට ක්‍රිබ් එක හොයාගෙන ගියාම ක්‍රිබ් එකේ මොකුත් නැහැ. But he's doing the business very well. ඒ කියන්නේ දැන් එයා නරක කියන එක නෙවෙයි. Sometimes, when we try to, go by the documents and documentary evidences, හොඳයි මිස් වෙනවා. ඒ දැන් ක්‍රිබ් එකේ ලකුණු ටික එනවා අර මනුස්සයාට ලකුණු වෙන්න එයාට 60යි අනිත් එකට 85යි. ඒ ලකුණු 25ම ක්‍රිබ් bank related. But unfortunately this guy has not, gone and, done banking because he has adequate funds. ඔක්කොම equity, even working capital is funding through equity. So we need to use our common sense. කොහොමද කරේ මොකද්ද කරේ ඉන්වෙස්ට්මන්ට් එක මොකද්ද වාගේ තියෙන්නේ කොහොමද රීඉන්වෙස්ට්මන්ට් කරේ මොනවද assets under you under your spouse, can I see the records, asset liability, so you need to map it out, balance sheet P&L profile නැතත් එහෙම තමයි අපි client එක judge කරන්නේ. Especially this is on SME type, very difficult because I know the difficulty. ඔච්චර ලේසි වුණත් කට්ටියට කියන්න, but when you go to do the practical banking, very difficult. Right? Discussions 3ක් 4ක් 5ක් ගන්න ඕනේ to tell the truth. එතකන් එයා ඇත්ත කියන්නේ නැහැ. එතකන් එයා කියනවා I want working capital loan කියලා කිව්වම තුන්වෙනි කතන්දරේදී කියනවා working capital නේ ඇත්තටම මට ඕනේ මගේ දුව රට යවන්න ගත්ත සල්ලි ටිකක් settle කරන්න. නැත්තම් දුවගේ වෙඩින් එකට මම යාළුවෙක්ගේ සල්ලි ටිකක් ගත්තා. ඒ යාළුවා එළවනේ එයාට මට දෙන්නයි ඕනේ working capital නෙවෙයි. Then you need to structure the loan not as a working capital loan. It's a medium term loan. Knowing the truth, you can construct the request, but you should know the truth. එහෙම නැත්නම් ඔයා එයා purpose එකට දීලා working capital දුන්නාම ඒ සල්ලි ටික අරගෙන term loan එකක් හැටියට එයා දුන්නාම මෙතන working capital deficit එකක් එනවා. ඔන්න OD වලට යනවා, excess වලට යනවා. යාළුවන්ගෙන් සල්ලි ගන්නවා. එයා කබලෙන් ලිපට. So that is the difficulty. Understanding the character is not easy. Very difficult, especially individuals, SME type guys, sole proprietors, partners, partnerships. Very difficult. Okay. Do any questions, please raise. Then, what are the factual information other than the bankers, banking records, CRIP statements, okkama hari, internal statements, okkama now hari. Now then you have to judge his character, creditworthiness, willingness through the factual information. What are the sources? Person stability, age and health, wealth, income expenditure, contacts. Those are the 5 sources that you need to peruse, work through to get an idea about his standing, his profile, his creditworthiness. Right? We go one by one. Give me a minute. We go one by one. Personal stability. What is this? So this is all about how stable the client is, right? When you talk about his home, some of your questions could direct to his residence. එයාගේ ගෙයක්ද? rent එකට දෙන්නේ? නැත්නම් shared basis ද? Whether he has been inherited from his parents? සම්පූර්ණ අයිතිය තියනවද? බදුද? Very important, right? Now, when you see a client who has been in the business for about 10-15 years, හැබැයි එයාගේම ගෙයක් නැත්තම් හැමදාම rent එකට ඉන්නේ, then it's a question නේ. Generally it shouldn't be, no. If it is so, there should be very justifiable reason. එහෙම නැත්තම් අපි it's a question mark. It's open-ended. Then status. Yeah, married, divorce, it's a widow, widower, number of children, number of dependents, persons with other dependents, Sometimes we find there are 2-3 wives for a single person. Right? Ek qualification ek වෙන අවස්ථාවක් තියෙනවා, disqualification එකකුත් වෙනවා. It's different. But there are. So you need to, I know, may not be ethical to us, but you need to. Even නැත්තම් මොකද වෙන්නේ, මේ ඔක්කොම හොයන සල්ලි 3-4 දිනකට වීදම් කරන්න බෑ. So what happened here is, then he does have a proper control over business cash flows. We should know that. එහෙම නැත්තම් we say it's good for that කියලා approve කරයි. When come to the operations, then he doesn't have adequate time to run the business. So he has to look after, their dependents and all that. So critical. Occupation. Then job එකක් කරනවද? එක contract, permanent. How long has been in the industry, the business? Casual, the contract. So very important. Right? Whether he is run the business and run an occupation, job, he's doing a job and part-time business, or rather you are trying to give him personal loan and then based on his employment income only that you can approve a loan. එතකොට ඔයා බලන්න ඕනේ incentives කොහොමද? So many things. Not easy. Every bit of information is critical. Right? අපි මේ discussion එකදී generally what I advise is, I actually also practice when I was a credit officer. When we go and meet a customer, we take a notebook. You put a date, client name and all that. So whatever you are discussing, important, you put down here. ඒක දානකොට ඔයාට ඕන නම් මේ වගේ මොඩල් එකක් කරා දාන්න පුළුවන්. correct එකට අදාළ information එක, call letter එකට අදාළ information එයාට ඒවා කියන්නේ නැහැ. But when we are questioning, ඔයාට ඒක ලියා ගන්න පුළුවන්. What's important here is, sometimes during the discussions, he might tell you about his future plans, his assets, his spouse's details, other assets. ගොඩක් ඒවා කියන්න පුළුවන්. Because when he is in a peak, he like to talk නේ. පොඩි තියනවා නේද, පොඩි අර ඒගොල්ලෝ කැමතිනේ boasting කරන්න. Many customers are like that. ඔක්කොම තියෙන ටික කියනවා. අරේ තියෙනවා, මේ තියෙනවා, ඔක්කොම කියනවා. Good to note it. So after some time, now customer is in a difficulty. ඔන්න දැන් you refer it before you meet in the customer. ඒකේ කිව්වා මෙහෙම unencumbered assets අර මයා කාටගේ අරන් දීපු ඒවා. So sometimes the customer might have forgotten what he had told you. Due to the mind that he is right now in, under stress, he might not see many opportunities, many alternatives. But as a credit officer, you have everything written down. You can advise. Remember, you were talking about this. Why not you sell this? Sell part of that. Why not you sell part of machinery and get that into working capital? Why not you bring somebody here to as a joint venture? Because you were telling that he is having some money, now he's in abroad. So many recovery alternatives also. ඔයාටත් මතක නැහැනේ ඔයා ඒ වගේ කස්ටමර්ස් 100ක් 200ක් 500ක් ඔයා මේ හැන්ඩල් කරලා ඇති. But that is useful because recorded. That's the number one activity. If you are a credit officer, you are a credit manager, you have to do. Meet, record, and keep it for future reference. So we trying to discuss about personal stability. Then age, health of customer, critically important. Age, health, whether he has undergone critical operations, right? Who is going to support him in case of emergency? Whether the spouse can come and operate on behalf of him. එතකොට කොහොමද business එක broad based වෙලා තියෙන්නේ? Who is having the technical capacity? Very important. I mean, those things you need to figure it out because these are individual guys. Key man risk is there. Succession plan could be a question. So you need to ensure that everything is under control. Not for a day 1, day 2, day 3. This could go for a 5-year, 7-year, 10-year horizon that you are speaking of. Maybe 70-year-old gentleman, in terms of business acumen, business experience, he is master, super. But in terms of operational risk, he might have problems. So you might have to ask mortgage protection, personal insurance, or you may not give him a longer tenor products. Short-term working capital could be offered to him. Whereas a young person, 30, 40 years, potential, energetic, but doesn't have adequate business experience. Then you have not the management risk, but you have business risk. For that, you need to have some alternative approach in terms of marketing, bringing good people to run the market under the supervision of this entrepreneur, because he doesn't have adequate business experience. That's how you manage it. Age health, going into the other segments as well. Then other factuals, what are those? Wealth, income, expenditure, contacts. Wealth is important. Level of assets owned by him, owned by his relative, owned by his family, because many cases they are not recording assets under themselves. They may be recorded, assets may be recorded under kith and kin. You need to know, right? You can ask some questions, cross-check, and probably you get those information can record it. Very important. මොකද නැත්තම් business එක කළා මොකුත් නැහැ assets. එතකොට reinvest වෙලත් නැහැ. Question එකක් නේ. When you're asking, he's saying, oh yes, I have purchased this, that, and maybe number. You do double check, validate, you ask the copies of the deeds, plans. That's important. Income, expenditure. Banker should understand the pattern of the regular expenditure and the answers to be cross-checked. Extravagantly spend karnawada. Change of lifestyle vela tiyinawada. You hear from their peers, clients, and about his behavior. මොකද චලියේ ගියා 3-wheeler එකෙන්, van එකෙන්, cab එකෙන් V8 එකට ගියා නම් අවුරුදු දෙකක් ඇතුළත එයා business focus වෙන්න බෑ. එයා ගන්න සල්ලි වලින් එයාගේ අර අපි කියනවා වගේ සුඛ විහරණය තමයි. Whereas some other still in the Delica or whatever, even after 15 years, super business model. Simple character and complex. Important their behavior. Suddenly වෙනස් වුණාද? ඇයි වෙනස් වෙන්නේ? එතකොට ඒකට කොහොමද business සල්ලි එතෙන්ට යනවද නැද්ද? So many questions in your mind. You know, double check, validate, cross check. Contacts may be related to important customer of the bank or a senior director of a major company. Right? It may be necessary to create goodwill or to avoid bad will, but not to consider merely on contacts alone. එතකොට සමහර වෙලාවට the client reputation. Client is a well-known person, right? High caliber, right? Educated, well-respected, sought-after personnel. හැබැයි එහෙම කියලා අපි නිකන් නමට credit loan එකක් දෙන එක කළ යුතු නැත. But if you have that type of a customer on your banking book, it's good for you. So we will take your name, take your branch, bank name to others and bring good customers also if everything is fine. හැබැයි නිකම්ම අර professor අරයා මෙහෙම හින්දා loan එකක් දෙනවා කියන එක we should not do. So his capacity, because that is important. Then එහෙම වෙනකොටම අපි දන්නවා, he is not willing to ruin his image by defaulting. Those are plus points, but you need to manage those relationships, right? So basically, we are discussing now some points under character, which is very important item out of the 5 C's. Willingness, creditworthiness, right? Nature of the borrower, risk profile, and everything is dependent on client's character, which is very difficult to measure, very difficult to judge, but it's a must to judge a client with the proper character if we want to approve or give a credit. Right. Any questions up to now? So today what we were discussing was, we were trying to understand some products, credits, classification into different areas, starting with on balance sheet, off balance sheet, tenor base, security base. So we try to classify the advances, loans, credits. And we learned several identified credit facilities in detail. Thereafter, we wound up that session with, after learning type of credits, type of borrowers, type of securities. Independently, we know now how to assess the borrower, assess credit, assess security. Our next task was to interconnect these three in terms of lending. For that, we try to understand, identify the several models. Out of that, we are about to continue, we are about to complete 5C module, where C is the character which we have discussed and completed right now, which is the most important C out of the rest. Right. So then next week, what we are planning to do is, so we try to understand 4 more characters, 4 more C's, and then we complete the individual retail evaluation method. Then we briefly understand corporate or SME, MME type of model also, so that it could be benefited for most of you, since some of you are into SME and corporate type of, corporate or mid-market type of financing. As a last session, last areas, we'll try to discuss the risk management also. What is risk? How we identify? What are the major risk in lending? How we are going to mitigate that? If time permits, we try to understand recovery follow-up, where how to identify, how to handle, and how to control. So with that, we'll be able to complete our 8-hour sessions. So today, so I'm planning to stop from this level, and next Saturday 1:30. So we are starting from the capacity from the 5C model. Any questions up to now? Right. So if you don't have questions, so we can wind it up for today, and then we'll meet on next week 1:30. So with that, so we'll be able to continue the last part of the presentation. And in the meantime, if you do have any questions, you can go through the slides which I have shared, and then so we can discuss it during the next week, maybe before starting the presentation, or even during the presentation. So we can discuss if you do have any queries on the section 1 and section 2. So thank you very much for joining today, consuming your relaxed Saturday, but hope that you have some kind of sort of benefit on what we discussed today. So thank you. Wish you safe week ahead. Take care.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
මේනක ඔයා ලයින් එකේ ඉන්නවා නම් අපිට ස්ටුඩන්ට් කෙනෙක් කියවම මේක අපි වීඩියෝ එක දාමු කියලා පුළුවන් තරම් ඉක්මනට මේනක එක බලන්න.